Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday.
We are live
Thursday, Sunday,
Thursday, Sunday.
and
Hello,
probably
everybody.
just Sunday. Hi. Oh, Chicago's playing tonight though.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Brian and I are. Brian's discussing his cupful strategy. I don't know, Brian, if now you're going to have to be more quiet about it now that we're live here. But thanks everyone for joining us. I'm pretty stoked for today's show. Got a lot, uh, got a lot planned like usual. But I think this is the week where we're able to actually really just, we're going to rein it in. It's going to be tight. It's going to
What are
be
you talking
like,
about? It's never good enough for you.
what? What are you talking about?
What do you mean we're gonna rein it in? It's tight it's always tight.
Well, it'll be tight. I mean, like the amount of time will be less than usual. I'm thinking we could
Is
knock
it a
it all out.
problem for you that it's
I think okay, well again, you're coming in kind of hot on me. You were like very chill and nice before we went live, and then all of a sudden
well, I just you made this you're giving off the impression that we never get it right. It's not this time we're gonna finally figure it out on episode 510 because I've hated
I
509 of
again
them.
like I feel like I guess I'm just saying like, if we could keep it to 2 hours, like be done by 10, it's reasonable. That's why
Yeah.
that's my goal. I'm not gonna be like upset if we don't. I'm just saying I think it's possible that we
I
can do
think
it.
I think this could be a 75-minute show.
I mean, that I doubt. That's unlikely, but we'll see.
I don't know.
We'll say what we have to say.
I feel like it's glancing blows all around. Yeah.
Sure. All right. So, all right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. We got a fun crew here.
Hi.
Ryan, I think he was saying his first
Hoi hoi.
live joining us for the season.
Ahoy hoy.
We got Shams, Norm, Patty, Classics, Phil, Matt, Matt Schwab, Pete, who's my
Shams the
opponent last
Sam.
week. Yeah. All right. Well, that's good enough for me. Brian, did you still want to talk through your move, or do you want to just Okay, I'll
No,
just
it's
say this
good.
about
I was just
Chicago. Or
projecting
sorry.
into next week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Say the thing you want to say about
Well, about
Chicago.
Mrazek is like
Yeah.
if he's gonna play one game next week and it's
Gonna be
late
at Tampa.
and it's at Tampa, I don't
Yeah.
know if like it might be a good game, but I just don't know if like
It
you
could
need to hold
be.
them.
And then you know what? He only plays and then he'll play twice the following week. But one Mrazek game is like from a streamer. It could be like three.
It could. It could.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Goalies are tricky like that. It's like
Tricky stuff, man.
because it's like one goalie game is usually worth more than a skater game,
Yeah.
but you're gonna get fewer, and also there is more of a risk, like of even like not a negative, but like it could also be super low.
It's risky
Like
business. Yeah.
Chicago's not going to win probably, so you're especially against Tampa. So you're just hoping for like a lot of saves. You're not
I
going to get those
just
3 points.
the lowest Mrazek performance this year was 3.9 points.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing, though.
How did Vegas only take 21 shots on Chicago? Did he
Thing
play
with
the whole game?
Mrazek though that you have to remember also, Brian,
Yeah.
is he still does suck. Like
Well, you know
in
what?
his depth,
I have
in
a case
his
I have a case to make for about
okay.
that
So
tonight
we'll
on the
talk about.
show.
Oh, we got a lot to get to then. I just think like he might pretend for a while, but at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure he sucks.
I
But
yeah.
we'll discuss.
Yeah.
We're using all
I
our good
can't
content before going
yeah.
live.
Okay, I hope you frame it in like exactly the same way on the
I'll
show.
try.
I
Okay.
thought that was funny.
Hosted by two guys who I never filled that out.
Oh, that's part of your job, man.
I'm failing at my job. Don't
Do you
fire
know
me.
I forgot I forgot my wireless mouse at
Uh-huh.
work. So like I'm in a very uncomfortable setup tonight.
Oh, I actually a long time ago now, not too long ago, like months ago, switched around and now I use my computer laptop. Like I use my laptop keyboard and trackpad as my like even for work. Like I used to use a wireless keyboard and wireless mouse and the whole thing. And then I realized I was like doing too much, like moving my hand over and I didn't like
Mm.
and so my wrist was hurting. Like I was like out like this, I was starting to have some
Why was
wrist
your hand in
issues.
the air?
No, not in the air. I'm just showing you for the camera. Like I was on,
Oh.
on the table, and I was like, so I'm like typing. Then I'd be out here to the mouse, and then back to typing, and it was
Oh
like a lot of
yeah.
like wrist. And so now though, when I have actually the trackpad, I'm like this, and then I just go, move it around right there.
Yeah.
It's like not as much movement. And as an old person, like that actually makes a difference. So
Yes.
now I have the whole thing where like I've got like the down, and then I've got the screen up. I used to have it side by side. Now I have
Yeah.
it like low and high.
So, Elon, I regret to inform you that this is Schwab Squad's fiance's first time listening live, and that was their introduction to our live show.
That's okay. I think this has been a pretty
You
decent
talking about
pre-show.
workplace ergonomics.
Yeah. I mean, it's important stuff. Maybe Schwab Squad's fiance will benefit or not. Okay. The worst part though is I still don't have my joke ready. Hosted
It's
by
their
two
first
guys
time
who
playing fantasy hockey, but it might be they have some advice on ergonomics. Maybe they're
okay,
like an
I got it.
ergonomics nerd. That's their thing.
Everyone has a thing. Some
Everyone
multiple.
everyone has a thing. That's a really put it on a shirt.
That could be a
I'd
kid's
wear
song
I'd wear that.
or a book.
Yes. It could be Sago Mini Friends. Do you know Sago Mini
No?
Friends? Oh, great. Like I just started watching a great kid show.
Okay. Great.
Yep.
I'll check it out. Well, right now we're all no screens.
Oh
One
yeah.
day.
Yeah.
One
Like
day.
when you get there.
I'm looking forward. I want to show her all the good shows. But okay.
Yeah, you're gonna
Let's
watch
do
like The
this.
Last of Us when she turns 3.
Yeah. I think that the first kid show I'm excited to watch with her is Adventure Time. I really love that show.
Is that a
Like,
kids show?
well, I don't think it's bad for her. It's not scary. It's funny. I
So
don't
it's
know.
not a kids show.
I mean, it's a cartoon with goofy creatures. Like, I
But
don't know. I'll look it up. I don't know. I think it's good. I think a kid should like that show.
here's a tip for you. And like this is not the Bible and it's not a hard and fast rule, but a great little spot to check. It's called common, and it's a terrible name because anyone who says they have common sense, like, could we just use common sense for once? What's happening in the world? But common sense parenting
Okay.
.org or something like that. Common sense media. Great little like flyby overviews of appropriateness of different media, like
All right.
movies, TV shows. It's really good. Solid.
All right. Norm says it's definitely a kids show. So you know what? I've met Norm. Good guy. That website you said sounds good, Brian, but I'm going
Okay,
I'm going with
gonna look
Norm.
I'm
Don't. We have to start. We have to start. I'm ready. I'm
Common
starting.
sense media.
I'm starting.
Okay, well,
Ready?
I'll open by talking about whether
Please
Adventure
don't.
Time's a
Please
kid's
don't.
show.
Just let's start. Okay.
I'm gonna do it. Just
I'm gonna
watch me.
I'm gonna edit it out. Okay. Okay. Yeah! Yes! Welcome everybody to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys who now have their full voices available, unlike me on the matchup maximizer that I recorded late last night. I am your host, Elon Dubrovsky, back at 100% and ready for a really fun show tonight. And with me to go through the crazy night of hockey that was yesterday, where 30 teams played and all the implications of everything going on in every single roster, it's my very good friend, the fantasy hockey robot, the poobah prognostication, a man who's just won yet another cupful matchup. Does this guy ever lose? It's Brian Com. How you doing, Brian?
Hey, I'm good. I actually lose often. I was looking at like Yahoo for your manager rating. It has like your recent record, and it's ugly. Like it's not pretty. It's under 500. I've had a rough couple years, but yeah, so far so good. I'm about to go 3-1, and the only week I lost, which was the first one, I lost because I was distracted from doing the podcast. Like there was a move. I had a move that I would have made had I been paying attention, and I wasn't. I was very mishkabibbled. Anyway, can I also just put a little call out? Two call outs. The first is for me personally. If anyone listening knows how to make an outdoor rink or wants to like give me advice, I have this space this year for the first time. And I kind of want to like bonus points if you're in Ottawa, like get in touch.
And extra bonus points if you'll just come over and do it.
You'll come over and do it. Like your kids can skate on it, you can skate on whatever. I provide the space, you provide the rink. I think it's
and Brian,
deal.
we could promise a free advertising of any product they want to sell on the show.
Honestly, if somebody wanted to make this a business, I feel like there's a market.
Go to your favorite podcast hosts' homes and build them hockey rinks. I think that's a really good business.
Well, no, it starts at your podcast host's home, and then and Elon, that would be your home. You're everyone's favorite, but then they could come to mine after that. Also, we have
that's because I get to edit the show afterwards to make myself sound better.
We also have this on our Discord server where our patrons all are invited to chat hockey and like everything, life, etc. Ask for fancy advice. We have this new channel. You might have heard of it, called the Accountability Channel. and it's run by Trev, who I'm calling our accountant. I think that makes sense. And like so, all the takes that we have on the show, Trev is tracking, and he's doing the same for Short Shifts host too. And it's like I'm excited because whatever we say on the show, like there's gonna we've always
There's
taken
going to be a
pride
day
in
of reckoning
there's going to be
coming.
days of reckoning, many days of many reckonings. So I just wanted to shout out Trev for doing the work because it is work. We appreciate you, and I'm excited to like share the fruits of your labor with the large listening populace.
Yeah, I guess so. We'll probably give each take, a few weeks to percolate before checking back in and see how it looks. So yeah, I guess probably in a show or two, we'll start having a weekly segment where we just look back at all the things we said a month ago and how they turned out. But for now, Brian, let's give ourselves from a month from now something to chew on, because we've got to take a look at what's going on in the NHL here. So I've got just so much that I wanted to bring up to you, Brian. Injuries, outjuries, hot streaks, cold streaks, the whole thing. I thought the fun way to do it would be like there were just a bunch of games yesterday. Let's just kind of go through them, see how they all turned out, and then we can talk about the teams along the way. Of course, another place where there's stuff like that going on all the time, looking at the results of games, is dobberhockey.com. Super awesome website. And we're proud to be presented by them. But Brian, yeah, any final words before we dive in here?
No, let's dive in. I'm already in.
Oh, okay. Well, edit
I
point.
was
You were like giving me a hands up, like let me talk, let me talk.
No, you hadn't mentioned Dauber, and I just
Oh,
wanted
I
to make
always,
sure you
I
did.
won't forget.
I thought you were forgetting.
Dauber.
It sounded like you were rolling into it. Okay.
Nah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna start with Nashville and Edmonton, by the way. All right. All right, let's do it. So yeah, let's take a look. We'll go in order of like the start times from the games yesterday. And yeah, a big win for the Nashville Predators over the Edmonton Oilers. And in that game, it was 5-2 for the Preds. The Oilers not having the season that obviously a lot of people were hoping that they would. And yeah, taking a look at the box score here, huge game for Ryan O'Reilly. 3 goals and 1 assist. One of those goals was on the power play, so power play goal. Also, Philip Forsberg, a nice game, a goal, a couple assists. Tommy Novak, a couple points. Yeah, all the guys that are probably already rostered were getting points. So Ryan O'Reilly, to be fair, isn't like so widely available on Yahoo, and he's someone that like the Short Shifts hosts were really pumping up. I remember Jeremy was pumping up going into the year. Like, why are people not talking about him as much? But yeah, with this 4-point game, ROR is now up to 11 points in 11 games. This is a guy who was like a solid 70+ point guy for a few seasons at the end of his tenure in St. Louis before he started to really trail off. Only a 61-point pace a couple seasons ago. Then last year he totally tanked and like was dropped in like most fantasy leagues, and that let him fall in drafts and even be a free agent. He was a free agent in my couple division for a moment. Dave picked him up, I believe, on waivers, and he's, I think, leading the fast track right now, which is pretty incredible with some really smart waiver ads, including Ryan O'Reilly. So, Brian, I mean, yeah, I don't need you to come on and tell me now that he's not going to be a point per game guy for the rest of the year, but like, what can we expect, do you think, from this top line, top power play, like resurging 32-year-old Ryan O'Reilly?
Ryan O'Reilly cannot be stopped. 7 games. Nope. Ryan O'Reilly cannot be stopped. 7 goals in 11 games means he's going to match his career high goals number, which is 28 goals, by the All-Star break. Can you believe that? If he keeps this pace up, which he won't, but still, I'm not about to like wet blanket Ryan O'Reilly entirely. It's been an incredible year for him. We know like he's not that far removed from being like a really solid rosterable player. We just know that lately in St. Louis, the way they spread out their offense amongst like their top 9, and also the way they just like kind of haven't been that great, have hurt O'Reilly the last 2 seasons. And like as a center with like not super impressive shot rates, like he used to take 3 shots a game back in his Buffalo and early St. Louis days. And then once he started fitting in around 2 shots per game, that's when Ryan O'Reilly's value started to go down. But we saw in Toronto that O'Reilly still had a little more to give if he was put in a more offensive situation. And now in Nashville, O'Reilly, like very unlike St. Louis, like he is on the line, right? Nashville has the line and the power play, although Tommy Novak and Luke Evangelista are making a decent case for there being another line in Nashville. But still, if you're playing with Forsberg's the guy. O'Reilly is centering the guy and making the most of it, and scoring a lot of goals while doing it. He's doing that because O'Reilly's shooting at a 32% conversion rate, which is double his usual, even though his 5-on-5 shot rates are actually down compared to last year. But one thing I do love about Ryan O'Reilly and why I'm saying I'm not like about to take him down a notch. Well, I already said the deployment and like team context is different, but I also really love Ryan O'Reilly's power play role. Shots galore on the power play. Anything O'Reilly's losing in his shot rates at 5-on-5, he's making up for it on the power play, and actually then a little more compared to last season. O'Reilly's also shooting 37% specifically on the power play, which isn't going to hold, but still like super high danger shots. Like O'Reilly is like sort of playing that bump or net front role. So like he's got a lot of really good looks on the power play. Like there's, big clappers from the point, and O'Reilly can just shove it in and get a really like sort of in the Kreider spot. So yeah, Elon, I just wanted to start on a positive note this week, and that's why I'm saying I like, obviously point per game isn't going to quite hold, but I could see O'Reilly returning to at least having the best point pace he's had for the last few years. Like he had 61 point pace a couple of years ago. I could see him finishing a little bit north of that if he keeps this up and keeps playing such an important role on the power play.
Yeah, and like there's no reason to think he won't, right? Like this is obviously looking like a really good signing for Nashville, and it's working out well for everyone. Over on the Oilers side, their goalies really stink. Brian, like I saw a tweet today or someone shared in our Discord how like the save percentage of the Oilers goalies is actually worse than the San Jose goalies. And San Jose is like getting destroyed every single game. Like so we're now at Jack Campbell sitting at an 871 save percentage in his 5 games, and Stuart Skinner now at an 861 in his 6 games after this latest outing. So this latest game against Nashville, it was Jack Campbell in net letting in the 5 goals. Before that, Stuart Skinner played 3 games in a row. One of them was good, a win over Calgary, but the other 2 not so much, including a really not so great 4 goals against Dallas. Like going into the year, it was like we were debating, who's going to be the starter. Like I remember I was making points, like I think they're going to give Jack Campbell a chance, and they did, but he stunk. They went to Skinner. We were saying like, yeah, maybe now's a good time to buy low on Skinner because if Campbell stinks, Skinner probably gets another shot, which he did, but he kind of also stinks. So at this point, is this more of like a situation like the San Jose goalies where we don't care? Or I don't actually believe that, by the way. I'm just like throwing the question to you. What do you do? Like, if you had like these goalies in free agency, I'd imagine, I guess Skinner's now going to be the next. He played 3 in a row. Now Campbell just got blown up, so I'm sure Skinner gets the next game. So let's just focus on Skinner. Like, is he worth holding? Like, do you add him if he's been dropped, or do you think this is just going to be a painful season? And Edmonton is like what is also up with Edmonton? I guess in general is the other part of that question.
Okay. Well, I'll start with the goalies and say that if I'm picking a horse in this race, like Elon, you said there was a lot of debate at the start of the year. For me, there wasn't. Like I thought Stuart Skinner was going to be a really valuable fantasy asset. Now I've been wrong, but I think I was still right that Jack Campbell won't be able to mount much of a challenge. So they've both been bad in Edmonton. All right. Skinner has been less bad at 5-on-5, and that's the kindest thing you think compared to Campbell. And that's about the kindest thing you could say about either of them. And the reason I'm still thinking that Skinner's my guy is that he's been the one with the most recent track record of playing well enough, right? So I feel like he's going to be the one to go going forward. This has been a long time since Jack Campbell didn't just blow every start up during the regular season. All right, I remember the playoffs.
Fair. But I mean, even if like I agree with you, and I do agree with you that Skinner is probably going to get more games than Campbell, but like even still, do I want him, or is he just going to also hurt me?
So I don't know if you remember, like, I brought this stat up, PDO, more often on the show this season than I have like cumulatively since season 3. Right? PDO is this measure. It basically adds a team's shooting percentage and save percentage at 5-on-5 and compares them to the league average. And the further off they are, the lower your PDO is. And basically, it's a measure of good or bad variance is the idea. Now, some teams can have like regularly high, like can keep up high variance better than others. And some can keep up low variance more than others. But still, they usually fall around what comes out to like a 1,000 or 100% PDO. Every team sort of regresses to that number for the most part. And then, like I said, if you're a little better or worse, you can end up a little higher or lower. But right now, I'm introducing all of this to say that going by PDO, Edmonton is the ranked 30th in the NHL. in PDO. So that's because their 5-on-5 save percentage is 889. That's what they're getting from their goalies. And not only is their save percentage bad, but their shooting is awful. They're shooting just 6.64% at 5-on-5. And that is about the seventh or eighth lowest marker in the league. So this is just a way to say that Edmonton is being like getting a lot of bad luck at both ends of the ice. And they're not actually this bad. Like if I want to rank by the goals that we would expect based on how dangerous the chances Edmonton's getting, Edmonton actually ranks first in the NHL in expected goals per 60 minutes. And these stats come from Natural Stat Trick. So buy low on your Oilers, I think is the is the lesson here. Like really all Stuart Skinner is going to need to do is what any Edmonton goalie has had to do for the last few seasons, which is give up 3 or less. And then you've got a good chance at picking up the win. The pucks haven't been going in for the Oilers yet, but they're gonna. All right. This is uncharacteristic of them. And that's why I still believe in the Oilers. And I still, especially in a league that counts wins, want their starter.
All right, fair enough. So yeah, I guess obviously the big part of PDO, the one half, is that save percentage where we do need Skinner to step up a little bit. Hopefully he can. And I definitely agree with you. We'll expect the Oilers to score more. We've started to see some trades happening. A couple of Connor McDavid trades, or at least one, a couple. I saw one on Twitter, McDavid for like a big package. Maybe now is a chance to get McDavid for like a little bit cheaper than you'd be able to. Because yeah, you got to imagine he's not going to be held down for long. Okay, so that's our first game from yesterday. Next up, let's go to the Winnipeg Jets defeating the Coyotes 5-3. Let's start in Arizona. Okay, I got a lot of players I want to talk to you about on the Coyotes, the losing team in that game. We got to start first with some hot streaks here. Lawson Krause, Brian, holy cow, has he gone off? And actually, I need to. Oh, you know what? Okay, when you start talking about Lawson Krause, I'll go back to confirm. Like, I got to give credit to someone in my allied chat on Discord, the Team Jordan chat. Someone at the start of the week was like, I have a good feeling about Lawson Krause this week. And he was like coming off like an injury where he missed a game or so and he had been slow to start the year. But it was like the best call ever. Like this week has been now like 5-6 points in 4 games for Lawson Krause, including like 4 goals in his last 3 games. This guy is going off, and that's on a line with Nick Bjugstad and Matthias Michelli, which isn't like nothing. Like Michelli is also having a great, obviously like no coincidence, like they're doing really well together. But Michelli had a good season last year, and now is up to 9 points in 11 games this year. So it's not like Krause is playing with nobodies. Obviously, the power play role isn't fully there, but the way I don't know, Barrett Hayton's going, I wonder if a spot opens up on the top power play at some point. But either way, Brian, I again, it's the kind of thing where I'm not going to expect you to say he's going to be like point per game rest of the way. But like, if he's in free agency, like how much of a rush should people be in to be adding Lawson Krause at this point with this amazing streak he's on? And I guess let's throw Michelli in there also, because those 2 guys that are super hot. And I'm curious to know if you think either of them are worth like rostering potentially for like the long term.
Yeah, I don't know how long term I'd look. Like, I'm not sure Lawson Krause has changed much from last season, where he was on a 48-point pace. His numbers this season so far are pretty similar. But from the second power play, he already has like, I mean, it's these little things in the margins that make the difference, right? So he has 2 power play points already, which puts him on a pace of like 16, which is about twice as many as we might expect Lawson Krause to get from that second power play unit in Arizona. So that alone would regress Lawson Krause down from his 57-point pace currently to about his 50-point pace that we'd expect. And then he's also, he's scored on maybe 1 more goal than he should have. So like I said, it's like, because it's a super small sample, I can pick out these few things that he's, where I think he's benefited and say, yeah, they're nice and it's great. And Elon, I like full credit to anyone who did call him out, because Krause was a good stream last year because he hits, he gets an occasional block as a forward, and he can put up shots here and there too, and isn't to be forgotten when the Coyotes have a nice streaming schedule. But I think had been like, we forgot. I don't think we really had pointed him out, but 4 goals on his last 10 shots is the reason why he's had an amazing week, and that's great. Good for him. He was due. He hadn't scored a goal on any of the 9 shots he had taken up until that point. But I don't think the frame you used was must own, and I wouldn't use that. Matthias Michelli, though, I will say is closer to somebody who I would want to roster for the full year. Just because, well, I went into Michelli last week, and the short version of it was he is shooting more. He's almost, well, doubled his shot rates, which doesn't mean a whole lot when he was taking a shot a game last year. And his on ice numbers are improved. Like the team is more dangerous with Michelli on the ice. I think he's gotten better. I think he's in a better deployment. Like his line mates have gotten better. So I think that's positive. But I should also check myself because Michelli has 3 power play points from the second unit himself. So he's benefiting there too, which puts him on pace for like 21 or 22 power play points for the whole season, which isn't going to happen down from the second unit. But yeah, I like Michelli for a couple shots and an assist in a semi-regular way.
Yeah. Well, okay. So we'll have to wait and see. This could be something Trev could look back on if Kraus turned out to have been someone we should have held. But yeah, it was Dawn in the Ally chat that called out Kraus at the beginning of the week, and it was a great call. I'm really curious to see who Don is going to recommend for us Team Jordan members to grab this week so I can go and get a leg up here. Okay, on the other side of Arizona, I got to mention him again. I'll just keep mentioning every week. I don't know. Like Barrett Hayton, still on the top line, still on the top power play. As of last week, you said, hold on because it's going to happen soon. And 4 games have gone by this week. Still nothing. We're at no points now in 11 games for Hayton. Even like the shots have slowed down at the start. You know, it was like, well, but he's taking all these shots. Eventually, something going. He had like 4 and 5 shots for like a few games. This past week, it was 1, 2, 0, and 1 shot. So Hayton like is even losing that. Somehow he's held this deployment. Hard to imagine. Like I did see like a tweet about like how they like him on the top line because it's like Keller and Schmaltz could do the offense and Hayton can do everything else, which doesn't make me too happy. But I like for the power play, you would think they would bump him. I don't know, Brian. I want to drop him. It sucks every single time I see that Arizona scores, which was a lot of times this week. I like just knew. I didn't even have to check. Like I knew that Hayton didn't get a point. And then I'd look and see like, of course. Does he even have a shot yet? Usually not. It's very frustrating. So he sucks. And I'm still waiting for you to give me permission to drop him. And then also in Arizona, I'll bring up Logan Cooley, who had that really strong start, cooled off for a little bit. Now he actually went on a 3-game point streak before going up pointless in the last game. So I just wanted to get like a check-in on Cooley here. Maybe at this point, it's not really worth it after this stretch, but he was on the top power play in the last game, which is good. We're at 8 points in 11 games right now. I'm just curious if you see Cooley as like, you know, kind of like Lawson Krause versus Cooley, you know, like is Cooley the guy who you hold long term, or is he kind of like Krause, like he'll be good for a little bit but not someone to hold all season?
Yeah, I think more likely that than Kraus. But if I wanted to try someone, I mean, Kraus is better because he'll fill your peripheral categories a little bit, even when he's not producing. And Cooley has not been very successful at doing that. He's taken more than a single shot in a game just one time in his last 7. And 3 of those last 7 games, Cooley has put up 0 shots. So even when he gets an assist, he's still not that useful to you based on cupful scoring anyway. So you can take him, you can hold him still as that speculative player if you want. But yeah, he's not somebody that I would be like hanging on to for dear life because he's just about to break because it's going to be too painful to wait unless you have the luxury of patience in your format. Yeah.
Is it more or less painful than waiting for Barrett Hayton, Brian? Can I do it? Can I drop him? Like
you can at your own
but I'll
peril.
regret it. And then he'll go off, right?
I think there's a good chance you'll regret it. Like I'm not saying for sure, and I hear that. Like my take on the Coyotes lines is that Hayden, Schmaltz, Keller are a unit, and like Cooley and Zucker and Kerfoot are like another unit, and like that's it. Like I don't see a whole lot of like fluctuation between the two, and maybe there will be the way things have been going. But like Hayton, I feel like has a coach who is like really supportive of developing players, of which Hayton is one. Looking at Hayton's own numbers, like he's taken 45 shot attempts, 34 have been unblocked, 26 have made it on net. This is at all strengths. And
this is all season. I'd love if you could even tell me
none of them.
I'd love to if you could even just look at the past 4 games like this week. Like because it seems like it's getting lower. At least the actual shots are getting lower.
Yeah, well, you know, at some point, I mean, I can only speculate, right? But I feel like at some point there is like a confidence thing. He's like, oh, I'm not scoring. So like I just, I don't know, right? I can't be sure if that's actually a factor, but I wonder. He's 23 years old, right? As are like all the Coyotes we've just been talking about, except Logan Cooley, who's even younger. I'm willing to still give Hayton the benefit of the doubt because per expected goals, he should have 4. According to how many shots he's taken and from where they've come on the ice. Yeah. And just by points participation rates, he's been on the ice for 11 goals, Elon. even in like his worst case scenario, he should have 6 points.
Yeah, you said
Like,
that last week.
yeah, I know. He still should. And
All right.
I'm gonna keep saying it until I see like a real fall off in numbers.
All
Um,
right.
yeah.
We'll punt it to next week. We'll see. I
Okay.
hate him so much. He's my least favorite player in the NHL right now,
Oh
Barrett Hayton.
damn.
Because at least Eric Carlson did something. So
Who
now
was it? I was gonna say who was it before, but it was Eric Carlson.
it was Ovi to start the year. Anyway, by the way, you mentioned Jason Zucker. He hasn't played at all this season, I don't think, but he is scheduled to come back. So the latest tweet I saw was like November 11th. So yeah, if you've got Zucker out there in IR, we'll see if Brian's prediction is right that Zucker and Cooley will be a unit. That's how it was in preseason, I remember. All right, so that's the Arizona side of that game. Then there was the Winnipeg side, the side that actually won. So maybe I should be giving more credit to Winnipeg, but just I don't know. I find like in general, the Arizona players are more interesting. On Winnipeg, it's a lot of just like the people who you want to roster are probably already rostered, and the free agents aren't that interesting. Though one guy I want to throw out to you, Brian, is Cole Perfetti, who like looks like he's finally getting going. He had a slow start to the year. Like only a couple points through 5 games to start, but now he's got 6 points in his last 6 games, 4 points in his last 3. These are all assists, I should say. But hey, assists are good. And yeah, Cole Perfetti is also very young, not as young as Logan Cooley, but someone who, only 19 years old. You'd expect that it takes him some time, and maybe now he's finally hit that stride. Perfetti playing on a line with Ehlers and Nemesnikov in that game against Arizona. He was not on the top, or I guess he was. Now that I'm looking at it, he had less than the maximum power play time, but it looks like it was just the second power play got more time. Scheifele, Connor, Iafallo, Perfetti, and Morrissey. Yeah, that's definitely the top power play. So yeah, we've got a top power play guy playing, I guess, second line. Do you think, like, how would you compare Perfetti to like a Hayton or a Kraus or a Michelli? Like, yeah, I'm just curious to see if is he like higher level, like definitely roster, or kind of in that. Well, you're saying Hayton's a definitely roster, but like, yeah. So where does Perfetti fit in here?
Yeah, I'd say maybe he fits in right alongside Matthias Michelli. One thing that's working in Perfetti's favor is that his points participation rate is perfecto. He's been on the ice for 7 goals at 5-on-5 and has pointed on every single one of them. 1 goal, 6 assists. 5 of those have been primaries. So let's give Perfetti credit for creating when he's creating. This is I think the start of something for Perfetti. I'm not sure how big a step he's about to take. But yeah, if I had Perfetti and you had Hayton, I would offer you Perfetti for Hayton. Would you take it?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know, probably.
Yeah. I mean, like Perfetti could also, yeah. I mean, he's on a 60-point pace, and I'm not seeing that as being like entirely unreasonable to expect through the season. Like it's probably the high end of what we can expect for Perfetti this year this will be his age 22 season. He turns 21 on New Year's Day. But I'll still go Hayden.
All right, we'll check in next week. By the way, Alex Iafallo, Patty saying Iafallo is to me what Hayton is to Elon. Hey, Iafallo at least had a goal and an assist a couple of games ago against Vegas. I can't even dream of getting 2 points. I just want one, 2 points in a single game. Are you kidding me?
I'd also, just before we fully moved on from this matchup, I wanted to mention in Arizona, for anyone who hasn't caught on, is that Vejmelka is no longer a volume starter, right? He's alternating starts with Connor Ingram. And Ingram, like Vejmelka, has actually done better at 5-on-5 compared to expectation, but Ingram has held his own as well. But if you look at their raw numbers in all situations, Ingram's got a 919 and Vejmelka's got a 904. Ingram has an 80% quality start percentage and Vejmelka just 50% quality start. So for now they're alternating. I wonder if at some point, if this keeps up, if the scales do start to tip to Connor Ingram, and if you're in a league where you're desperate for goaltending, keep in mind that you can predict when Connor Ingram starts, which is at this moment every other game and potentially more often. Although Elon, I feel like there's a lot of situations this season where teams are just straight up alternating back and forth, and they're very rigid about it. Like I don't see a whole lot of flex in
Yeah.
seeing some of these teams that have the back and forth. I don't see teams being like, yeah, we're waiting for a guy to get hot and then we'll run with him. They're like, no, we're just going to keep doing this. It doesn't even matter what they do.
Yeah, like I think it's more the opposite. It's like we're waiting for someone to be really terrible, in which case we'll have no choice but to play the other goalie. But yeah, Ingram and Vejmelka have both not given the coach a reason to like bench the other one. You know what I mean? So it's just like, yeah, I think they're for sure going to keep alternating unless one of them really falls off, and it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. But you're right. It's been happening in a lot of teams. We were just talking off air. Mrazek and Soderblom pretty much for the season have been alternating. There was one extra game that Mrazek got this past week as a reward. Apparently, it was like a tweet, like he got a reward for a good game.
A
But
special treat.
special treat, you get to play one extra NHL game. Why not? Hey, I'm sure like all these retired NHLers, like every single game was a gift. So why not? Brian, we still got. So we've gone through what 2 games out of 15. So we got a lot to get to. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back soon. You're listening to Keeping Karlsson. All right, we are back, Brian. The next matchup I wanted to get into here was the 2-1 win for the Washington Capitals over the Columbus Blue Jackets. So Washington slowly but surely, like kind of turning the season around a little bit. I don't know if they're a playoff team at this point, but they did pick up the win there. Columbus, no points for Ovechkin, by the way. Very frustrating for me as an Ovechkin manager. We don't need to get into him. I actually was more interested in talking about some of these Columbus guys, specifically Johnny Gaudreau got benched for the end of the game. There was a tweet like for the last like 15 minutes or something, and the coach like straight up said like I didn't like his game, so I benched him. Like it's just like I don't think it was good. So it's like okay, he's like the star player on the team and he's getting benched, which is always an interesting strategy. And then Columbus lost, and like I'm not saying that I for sure would have not lost if they did, but you would think, what do I know, right? I'm not an NHL coach. I would probably put out Johnny Gaudreau if I'm losing 2-1. But anyway, Gaudreau's not having a good year overall, right? Only 5 points in 11 games now, only 1 point in his last 4. What's your take on Gaudreau at this point? Like, is he going to turn this around, or are we looking at another Jonathan Huberdeau situation where like people are going to hold way too long to just be disappointed? Keep in mind, by the way, that Patrick Laine is still injured. We haven't really heard anything about him and when he's going to come back. Can't imagine that's helping Gaudreau having Laine out. So yeah, what's your current take on Gaudreau and what people should do if they have him? Oh, you're muted. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Do you know Johnny? Yes, Papa. Do you know that?
No, just whatever. Just make the reference if you need to, but I don't know these references.
I'm not gonna, because I'm gonna work on it for another show. All right. I would be okay with Johnny Gaudreau. Like I am also not an NHL coach, so I don't know exactly what his coach is looking for from Johnny Gaudreau. But I just see a whole lot of I see a pile of bad variance for Gaudreau at 5-on-5. He just has a 40% points participation rate and 6% on ice shooting percentage. But even though Columbus isn't having a whole lot of shooting success when Gaudreau's on the ice, and when they do, he's just not getting in on the points as much as he really should be. They are doing pretty well as a line when Gaudreau is on the ice. Like the expected goals for the Blue Jackets with Gaudreau are pretty decent, and Gaudreau's own underlying numbers are okay. Like one obvious thing, like Gaudreau has 1 goal on 32 shots. He's taking 3 shots a game, which is about as good as we can expect from Gaudreau. And he's scored on 1 of those 32 shots, which is 3%. And I think generally the number for Gaudreau is probably somewhere at least 10% and as high as 15% for his shooting percentage. So we should have seen a couple more goals from him by now, I think. And also some more power play points. Holy cow. Just a single power play point through 11 games. I was talking about what the second unit in Arizona was doing. And that's a whole lot better than what Johnny Gaudreau has been able to manage so far. And again, I think this is variance. I think he's going to be okay. So like, maybe so my the end of story take is I think Gaudreau is going to be okay, but there is this other factor of exactly what his coach does and doesn't like about him, and what his coach is going to ask of him, and whether or not he's going to lose out or miss on opportunities until he starts doing whatever it is what Pascal Vincent wants him to do. So that's my ongoing concern with Johnny Gaudreau. But under the hood, he himself looks like he's doing okay. If I wanted to pick at something, it would be like his ice time's down a little, but also that might just be I actually yeah, like that's it. That's connected.
Coach doesn't like him.
It's a small sample. Like I'm looking at his 5-on-5 average ice time for the year, and it's low, but I think it's because he lost like 7 minutes in one night at 5-on-5 or 12 minutes or whatever. So yeah, I think Gaudreau's going to be okay so long as he and his coach can kiss and make up.
Well, we'll see if that happens. Also, the power play time I see has been down in his last 3 games. Gaudreau has not had over 50% of the team's power play time. So yeah, definitely something to watch on the plus side. If you want to go for Gaudreau, like Columbus is coming up on a nice stretch of like schedule weeks. They just have like 4 games, like over and over and over again for like the next 5 weeks. I think only one of them is 3 games, and most of them are 4. So now would be a good time to go for a Columbus player. And if you're not going to be trading for Johnny Gaudreau, then I'll mention a couple other guys. So Kirill Marchenko, right, was dropped from, Kirill Marchenko was benched for a couple of games. Very frustrating to those for those of us who spent big fab on him when we saw that he was going to be like top line, top power play to start the season. But he came back from that benching, had a goal and 6 shots against Tampa, and then an assist against Washington, and 4 shots. So 2 huge games from Marchenko, the stuff we were hoping to see like at the start of the year. So now might be a great time again with this Columbus schedule. Someone to definitely take a look at if he's in your free agency, which he probably is. And also another name I'll just throw out there, Brian, because I've mentioned him a lot, like more than I should have in the off season. It was like, and again, get ready to drink Patty, but like in my dynasty league, I'm always looking for those little diamonds in the rough. And I saw this guy, Dmitry Voronkov, was coming over from Russia, and there were some tweets, like some buzz that he might make the team and be decent. He started in the minors, but this guy Voronkov got called up, and so far he's played 5 games. He has 4 points. Lately, he's been playing on, I think, the second line with Fantilli and Marchenko. I don't know what you call that line, but it's like the deployment just keeps getting better for Voronkov. So I'm not necessarily saying you have to jump on him. If you're in a dynasty league where minors eligible players are valuable, I think now is the time to grab him just in case. I know Victor in the league that I'm in with him, he was like, I don't want Voronkov. I know you like Voronkov. I don't think he's good, but I just went and added him yesterday because it's like, I think he's good. So we'll see. Anyways, so those are all my Columbus opinions, Brian. Like, again, you're going to want to be looking for these diamonds because of those great schedules coming up. So there's other names you could even be looking at, your Roslovics or whatever. But I feel like I'm good to never ask you about Roslovic again, like ever.
Sure.
We've talked about him enough over the last 5 years.
Yeah, that's fair. And like, there's no predicting whether he's going to be good in a given week or not, or whether he's actually good in the long term. Like, if he has a future ahead of him, Roslovic has really given us no consistent indicators. I will say though, Elon, like I agree with you. I would be happy to stream in Marchenko ahead of Roslovic, but I would not stream in Voronkov over Roslovic. I would go Roslovic first.
You're a victor over here. No one believes in Voronkov, except he's giving me points on both of my dynasty teams now.
He's a big boy, 6'5", 240.
Yeah. He's the one I was telling you about, and then people were making fun of me that he had a really good workout video over the summer.
I bet he did.
He was lifting like the craziest amount of weight, and everyone was like, "Oh, this guy's gonna be so amazing!" And I was like, I like him."
And, well, he's scored on 40% of the shots he's taken. So if he keeps that up, you're right. He's going to be amazing.
Or there could be a rebound, and then someone else scores, and it all works out. He still gets an assist. But okay, Brian, let's go now to your Ottawa Senators, who got defeated, unfortunately, 6-4 to Tampa. So things I don't want to say going off the rails, but the Sens had a good start, and now like some losses starting to pile up. But anyway, let's start over in Ottawa here just to talk about like the main player I've been seeing a lot of people asking about is Drake Batherson. I think we've talked about him on the show quite a bit recently, I guess, because he just started like so cold. He did score a goal in this game versus Tampa, had 4 shots. Are we at a point, like, I'm just curious, like, to get your updated like prediction for like just the overall points, like if you had to pick right now, how many points is Batherson going to end the season with? Like, what is he? Is he like a 70-point guy? Is he a 60-point guy? Like, is he someone that people should be depending on? Like, stop asking us, like, we're just going to always say hold Batherson, or is he like more fringe than we thought at the beginning of the year?
I think Batherson is on a Voronkov-like trajectory right now. At least your perception of Voronkov's trajectory. I think he's in a good way. Through Batherson's first handful of games, he put up 5 shots in his first game of the season, and then did absolutely nothing. No multi-shot goal, or no multi-shot games came in games 2 through 5. Just a single shot, ended up averaging 1.5 shots per game through Batherson's first 5 games. And now Batherson has 4 multi-shot games in his last 5, averaging 3 shots per game. It's a start. Honestly, the opening of the season was so ugly that his underlying numbers still look pretty awful. And we're going to need to see like another 5 or 10 games to see if what he does still from this point on continues to outweigh and sort of undo the damage done in those early days from Batherson. At least he's where we mostly want to see him in the depth chart, playing the most often with Tkachuk and Norris last game still on the top power play, or sorry, I should say power play 1A. So yes, Elon, you're asking if Batherson is fringe. I don't think so. I think Batherson is a for sure roster. Whether or not you want to take the chance and buy low, like I don't know, I'm going to try and compare him to Gaudreau and say who would I rather have the rest of the season. I think I'll go with no. I don't know. I think
So you're saying it's a
Gaudreau.
push. You're not sure.
Yeah, it's kind of a push. I think it's a similar situation. So you can buy low, but I'd say like Gaudreau, there is some risk there.
Mhm.
But I still think like Batherson, 78-point pace 2 seasons ago, 62-point pace last season while having some awful variance. I think there's a really good chance he just falls somewhere between there and that he is starting to get going.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll have to watch and see. I should mention, by the way, Brady Tkachuk, nice game for him with the 2 goals and 1 assist. But of course, Tampa won the game. Like nothing super noteworthy, right? It's like Nikita Kucherov's amazing. He had 5 points. Braden Point's amazing. He had 4 points. Victor Hedman had a couple of points. Hedman fell in drafts quite a bit. Everyone was like, I don't even want to touch it. Like, I don't know if it's going to be Sergachev or Hedman, blah, blah, blah. Well, you missed out on a guy who has 11 points in 11 games. And like when I say you, I mean me also. So Victor Hedman is very good, and probably everyone who drafted him got him at really good value. Obviously, who knows what'll happen? He's been on the top power play like for most of the season so far. Like if you look at his game log on Frozen Tools, it's over 50% every single game. So that's pretty great. And yeah, I feel like maybe a lot of people were afraid to like stick their neck out and give like a high projection for Hedman because of that last season, but yeah, he's looking pretty good to me, Brian. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying like whatever he's going to be point per game, but I don't see why he can't be like a 65, 70, like, what he used to be. It seems like Tampa scoring a lot. They're good. He's good. I don't even think we need to discuss any further. So,
Okay.
unless you want to. I'll
No.
mention one more name, by the way, Alex Barre-Boulet. If you want like a streamer from Tampa who might be available to you, he's been on the top line with Kucherov and Point, who, like I just said, are incredible and had great games. And Boulet actually is now up to 6 points in his last 6 games. So he doesn't get a ton of ice time, but when he does play, he's clearly on the ice with really good players and he's producing. So yeah, in your super deep leagues, take a look at ABB.
Yeah, for sure. And can I just say one thing on Hedman, in like how comfortable you're feeling about him and how great that is? It
Mm-hmm.
is. But I still have this fear. And like he fell in drafts because we were worried about like who's gonna get the power play time. Like, I don't know, like game 41, John Cooper's like, okay, guys, swap out. And Hedman leaves the top unit and in comes Sergachev. And then their fortunes flip entirely. So I don't know. If I was having Hedman, I would be enjoying it because I got great value out of him, but I might want to try and cash that bet out as soon as I could. I don't know, Elon. I just wouldn't be able to really stomach it. Like I wouldn't want to like trade a whole lot down, but I'd be happy to trade down a little just to avoid having to worry about like this random switch flipping because we never found out why the change was made last year, and I'm still a little scarred from it.
I guess, yeah. Well, I'd be curious to know who you're trading him for, right? But yeah, for sure. Like he has 3 power play points this year, to be fair. So there's still 8 points in 11 games, which is a really good pace. A lot of it came at the start of the year, but like whatever. Hedman just had a good game. 2 points, like I said, none of them were on the power play. So it's not like he's like a nothing without it, of course. But every little bit matters. Let's go next to the Sabres defeating the Leafs 6-4. Very exciting game there. On Buffalo, big return for Devin Levi, who came back. Wasn't like incredible in terms of his save percentage, but obviously good enough to get the job done. Stopping, what was it, 4 goals against on 29 shots. So yeah, not a great save percentage, only 862. But again, like the Leafs are a good team, and at the end of the day, a win's a win, right? So yeah, nice for the Sabres to have Levi back. I know, Brian, you've been like suggesting that you think he might get sent down, or I don't know
Not,
exactly what you're suggesting.
no,
Okay,
that's not what I'm
okay, let me edit
suggesting.
this again. Let me say it again. I know you've been like pointing out in our group chat with the short shifts people that you're like not like so sure about Levi. Like, I guess yeah, his overall save percentage isn't good. So, like, what's your take right now? Are you thinking like because there was a lot of hype going into the year? I still, even with the bad save percentage, I'm still kind of like just still washing in the hype of just like he'll be fine. Like he's an awesome prospect, and like he's so young, and I think he's going to figure it out. I think the Sabres are going to let him figure it out. Like, what's your current take on Levi now that he's back from his injury and got a win?
My current take is that I like I it, hmm. Let me how can I put this? Like the Sabres are developing Devin Levi, right? And I guess my current take is how do they see that development happening this year? And if he continues to struggle, Does that mean they keep tossing him in there, or does he go apply his trade elsewhere before he hits the 10 game mark and burns a year off his ELC? I don't think so. I think there's an outside chance of that possibility, and I'm only saying that because Devon Levi is easily the worst Sabres goalie this year. He's actually got one of the worst Delta Fenwick save percentage numbers in the league. And at 5-on-5 save percentage, if you want to take a simpler measure, also one of the worst numbers in the league amongst goalies who've played at least, a handful of games. And in the context of other Buffalo goalies, Levi's got an 881 save percentage at 5-on-5. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen has an 894, and Eric Comrie has a 911. Comrie has been the best in the smallest sample of minutes too. Basically, Levi has not earned the net. And so I just wonder if it doesn't matter to Buffalo this year. If they're like, okay, this is a great year for him to get experience. We can't buy this experience down the road. It's going to have to happen at some point. So we're just going to keep tossing him in. And I guess that's where I'd lean. But I think we at least need to be cognizant of the possibility that Levi is not the surefire guaranteed volume guy that everyone thought he would be at the start of the season when we thought he was NHL ready. Because so far he hasn't shown that he is. It doesn't mean that can't change over the next 5, 10, 15 games, that Levi figures it out. It's a big jump from where Levi's been. And if he's as good a goalie as he's supposed to be, then maybe he can adjust. Maybe he's got what it takes. He turns 22 in 7 weeks from now. So he's still young. We'll watch and see how this develops. But I think if you have Levi on your roster, he's in free agency or whatever, I think just bear in mind that as he hasn't had that super exciting start we were hoping he would at the start of the season. And I'm watching to see how Buffalo wants to handle that.
Yeah, I wonder if soon Lucas Dostal overtakes him in hype for the Calder. Not that either of them are going to win it, but going into the year, it seemed like Levi was the sure thing goal. If a goalie was going to get it, it was going to be him. But yeah, he's got to do a little bit better. But I think at the end of the day, also Buffalo's not only basing it on this season, it's also just based on their other goalies aren't that good. You're saying Comrie's been better overall in his 2 or 3 games, but there's Buffalo's going for it, and I just don't think they can rely on a Comrie, but maybe they can't rely on Levi either. But maybe they're just at least we'll rely on the person who seems like they could potentially be good based on their previous track record.
I'm just curious to know if the Sabres are going to Marc-Andre Fleury Levi this year. Do you remember the Penguins in Fleury's first year? They were awful, but they trotted Fleury out every single night, and boy, did he go through his paces. But look at what happened next.
Turned into a legend who's still getting a lot of starts this season somehow. Brian, but also in Buffalo, I wanted to bring up some other things. So Dylan Cousins is injured. I think that it's not the kind of thing that's going to be super long term. He's day to day as far as what they've been saying. But in the meantime, in the 6-4 win of that Buffalo had over Toronto, the lines that they were rolling were Skinner, Tuck, and Thompson, just kind of back to the classic from last year. And then Casey Middlestat was centering, I guess, the second line with Greenway and JJ Peterka. And you know what? That Middlestat and Peterka pair, looking pretty good. Peterka had a goal and an assist. Casey Middlestat had himself another point, and he's been on a bit of a streak lately. So yeah, obviously we know that Tuck had a good game. He had 2 goals. We know the top line of Skinner, Thompson, and Tuck are good. We don't need to dive into them. But what do you think of Shams wanted us to specifically talk about Peterka. I also wanted to talk about Middlestat and just kind of get a sense now of is he becoming a season long hold? Actually, Ryan Downey asked to talk about him. So yeah, what are your take on these second liners? And by the way, I should point out with Cousins out, Casey Middlestat was on that top power play in this last game and has been for a short little bit. So yeah, another reason to be excited about Middlestat. If you get him, I dropped him last week, Brian, at the start of the week when Sam Bennett was announced to come back on Monday.
Oh,
and I was I got to drop someone. So I dropped him for Sam Bennett, who right away got injured. Just really, really sucked.
That hurts.
But I do my best.
Yeah. And you know what, for me, Middlestat was a 1-game stream. And I think, whether he was playing Monday earlier, he was playing early this week. He had a couple nice off nights at some point. So I was holding him just in case I didn't have another move to make. And sure enough, he stayed on my roster almost by chance. And I'm really glad he did, because Casey Middlestat is producing. You look at his stat line actually through the whole season, and it looks like this is what you'd expect from a top end scorer in the NHL. Right now, Middlestat's on a 4-game point streak. He has points in 6 of his last 8 games. And now it's is Casey Middlestat rounding into what appears to be a legit top 6 option? and I would say appearances might be deceiving here. Although I should clarify, maybe he is a legit top six option, but I don't think Middlestat is going to quite continue producing at the clip he's currently on. And a couple reasons for that. At 5-on-5, Middlestat is shooting double what he usually does, 22% versus his usual, well, less than 10% actually, and also is benefiting from a 16% on ice shooting percentage amongst him and his line mates. So that's one reason why I think Middlestat is going to fall off his current 75-point pace, because you regress that, knock a few points off his 5-on-5 numbers, and actually Middlestat's already right back there to his mid 50s where we'd expect. The flip side, though, Elon, as you said, he's on the power play. He's been there for the last couple games. No points there so far. And we don't know if he holds that spot with a healthy Dylan Cousins either. So I'm not sure. I have him on my current Cupful roster, kkupfl.com. That's our listener league. Well, that's understating it. You can go learn more about it at the website if you want. I hope you will. Anyway, I think for me, I'm ready to thank Middlestat for his service and move on, just because like he's a center only player, a low shooter, and I think I've been really fortunate to have him for this run, but I'm not sure it's going to continue even with this top power play deployment. Like that's what puts the like, oh, maybe I should hang on, and maybe I will for another game or so. But Middlestat plays, I think, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday this week, so I'm only going to get one game out of him on my roster, and I have to wait to Friday for it, and I'm not sure if I have that much patience. As for JJ Paterka, he's got nicer shot rates than Casey Middlestat, and he's scoring on 18% of his shots. Paterka has 5 goals on 28 shots, but he has high expected goals rates, which align somewhat with his higher shot rates too. And I think Paterka, remember we got so excited about Paterka last season during his call up, and I think we were calling him Peterka, like we weren't quite ready to fully acknowledge. But I remember the hype because he was coming up from the Rochester of the AHL, had 68 points in 70 games. This was a couple years ago, and then finally was getting into good deployment in Buffalo, and had some moments. But this year, I really like what Paterka is doing with a little extra role and ice time too. I'd actually love to see Paterka get a turn on the top power play unit. And between him and Middlestat, Elon, you can call me crazy, but I'd feel a little more compelled. Like I don't think either has to be a hold, but because Paterka has better positional eligibility and better shot rates, I think I kind of just prefer him by a smidge to Casey Middlestat.
Hey, I mean, when you're saying better position eligibility, like, of course, if you could get more games out of him than Middlestat, then sure. Like, I mean, that's definitely a huge consideration. Yeah, like Paterka, 21 years old, like, seems to be doing really well lately. Like I said, like 6 points in his last 5 games now, up to 8 points and 12 on the season, which would be a 55-point pace. I think that's like a reasonable thing to expect maybe for the rest of the year. But again, a 55-point pace is not someone you necessarily hold all year, but like definitely someone interesting and someone you should be adding to your watch list to see if he can keep this up. In general, in fantasy, I don't love grabbing players who like, aren't on the top power play and only play around 14-ish like minutes a game. But if the time on ice, like the last game was 18-24. So if he has more games like that, then I'd become a little bit more interested. Brian, can I throw one more name at you? This is just for fun. This is another opportunity for Patty to drink. But there's a guy on Buffalo who I actually drafted in my Dynasty League way back when we had our inaugural draft like 3 years ago. And he finally played his first game for the Sabres. He's a defenseman named Ryan Johnson, who was a 31st overall pick in 2019. Was almost like he was one of these guys who was drafted and then like they waited like the last minute to sign him. Like he would have gone back, or he would have been like a UFA, kind of like, what was that guy? The guy that everyone was talking about for a while ended up going to the Rangers. Anyway, whatever. There was a guy that was
Adam
like that.
Fox?
No, but like someone who ended up stinking. Like, but there was like a lot of hype at the time that people thought like he was someone that, like, oh, who's
Fabian
going to sign
Brunstrom.
him? Who?
Fabian Brunstrom.
No,
It's
not him.
not.
Anyway,
Just, yeah.
I'll look it up. Anyway, it doesn't
I
matter.
can
But
make a
anyways,
Fabian Brunstrom
it didn't end up
reference, I
happening
will.
anyways because Johnson did sign. Anyways, all that to say, he played his first game, only played 8 minutes and 20 seconds, but he had an assist and 4 blocks. Imagine if he played like,
See,
20
Elon, that's
minutes.
concerning. How do you play 8 minutes in a game and block 4 shots?
Exactly. I don't know.
Yeah.
All I know is I'd be curious to know how many blocks he'd have if he played 16 minutes. So I don't know. A guy
Well,
I'm
the math says 8, Elon, and
yeah.
the math is indisputable.
Yeah. Some
I'm trying
defensemen
to
play like 24 minutes.
Who
Insane.
yeah. Okay.
All right.
That's really
Anyway,
interesting. Ryan
just a
Johnson,
guy. Yeah, Ryan
you
Johnson.
know the next three players taken after Ryan Johnson?
Hit me.
Shane Pinto, 99
Okay.
career games. Arthur
Gambler.
Kaliev, 146 career
Oh, I like
games.
Kaliev. I'm going to talk about him
And
later.
Bobby Brink, 21 career games.
Had a good
You might
have a good
say
start.
Buffalo might regret that pick.
Maybe. I guess let's see. I mean, it's only been one career game for Ryan Johnson, so I don't think it's really fair to compare them just yet, but we'll have to wait and see. You're probably right though. Okay, so next, oh wait, there's Toronto side of this game. Buffalo beat the Toronto Maple Leafs. Did I have anything I wanted to bring up about Toronto? Yeah, I guess so. I mean, John Klingberg was someone that we were like really excited about at the start of the year because he took that top power play and he had like a really strong start. But he's been like super cold lately. No points in 5 games. He's still on the top power play though. So is it like one of those tough? It's just like a Barrett Hayton situation for me, Brian, where it's like I'm sure people who have Klingberg are like, I just want to drop him because he's not doing anything, but also he's still getting the deployment that we got excited about before. So what's your current take? Is he a hold or is he a drop, John Klingberg?
I think you hold. Like it's a really strange place to be, and like, but Klingberg managers know this by now, right? Like this is part of the deal. 5 points in 6 games to start the season for Klingberg. Now pointless in 5 games and just 7 shots in that time. In this, like, an overall, like, Klingberg rarely shoots, right? He hasn't taken more than 2 shots in a game. He's done 3 times, just 2 shots. He's had 6 games where he's taken one single shot and 2 games where Klingberg has not shot the puck at all. But the thing is that Klingberg is still on the top power play. So, like, there's a chance, right? And that's on a power play, by the way, is clicking at 28%. They rank fifth in the NHL at power play conversion. So, like, I see that as kind of like a who cares how Klingberg personally is doing in terms of if you're wondering, oh, are they going to move him off because he's not producing on the power play? I don't think so. So I wonder if Elon maybe this is like a Shabbat situation is like the best comp I can come up with off the top of my head, which is that Klingberg is on a power play unit that's really successful, but barely needs him. Like by points participation, I think he should probably have had a couple more power play points than he's had so far. But I don't see him getting knocked off the top unit, which is kind of the determining factor in whether or not I hold on to him for at least another week just to see if it's bearable.
Yeah, like Toronto does have a good schedule next week. So I'd say if you have Klingberg, hold him for the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, if you could fit him Saturday, and then maybe we reassess. By the way, I should mention, obviously, the big highlight from the game was the hat trick for Austin Matthews to get him back into the league lead in goals, even though like almost all of his goals have just come in 3 games, 3 separate hat tricks. And then, yeah, Mitch Marner had 4 points. So that's good. In net, though, not a great game for Joseph Woll, who got the start after Ilya Samsonov finally had a good game in the overtime loss to Boston on Thursday. So I'd imagine probably, Samsonov gets the next game. So it just kind of seems like a situation here to me where I don't know, like we're not back to square one because square one was Samsonov as the starter. I think we're very much now in a situation where it's just like they're going to probably keep rolling out whoever does well and not rolling out whoever loses. So it's like it's going to be tough to hold either goalie. Like I don't think Woll is as much of a must have right now, just because you're going to have to kind of wait until like late in the week for him to probably play his next game. But I don't know. We'll see how it turns out. I don't know. Do you have a take on the Toronto goalies, or are you just kind of just like, yeah, it's just going to be kind of tricky, hard to predict what's going to happen?
Yeah, well, I'll at least just share the numbers that Wool has been better. The numbers in terms of like playing compared to your average NHL goalie are somewhat close between Wool and Samsonov, but the 5-on-5 save percentages are actually pretty stark. In favor of Joseph Woll. So, I'd say Samsonov has probably been about average from what we could expect him to do given his workload, and Woll has been excellent. And I think excellent will beat out average. I think Samsonov has a history of being inconsistent, and I see this like Samsonov isn't quite in Jack Campbell territory. Even he's not even as close as I think I just made it sound. But I would say, if I were to try and make the analogy, I'd say Joseph Woll is the Skinner and Samsonov is the Campbell, except a more capable Campbell. If that
Yeah.
makes any sense.
I guess the one thing I think we have to like try, like this is like an analogy that might not even fit, right? But I kind of think of it a little bit like, in New Jersey, kind of like last year, it seemed like whenever Akira Schmid played, he was like really good, and Vanacek like wasn't that good. So going into this year, it just kind of felt like, I mean, the guy who's like was better last year is probably going to eventually overtake. And like so far, like Vanacek has been getting most of the games, and he's been like decent. And I wonder if like Wool, like we're excited about him because he's looked good, but it's been like such a small sample size that I guess it's kind of like you don't want to get too like overhyped just because he's been so much better than Samsonov. Clearly he's the better goalie, because again it's like just so few games, and Samsonov does have the track record. So but obviously it's very hard to predict goalies, so this will be a fun thing to check. Like Trev, like I don't even know if there's a take here that we're dropping, but I would like to check back in a month, and see like who ended up getting more games over the next month and who did better. But Brian, I guess one
do you think,
oh,
do you want to try and make a guess for Trev? Like I'm gonna say Wool, even if
oh,
it's by a small margin.
okay, I'll say Samsonov just
For
for
fun,
fun.
or do you? Okay, you don't
I think
have
it's like
to.
I think it's like 50-50. Like I'm not too sure. Like I think Samsonov is the guy who was supposed to be the starter. So I think if they're even, then Samsonov will get more games, So but yeah,
Okay, there it is.
There
There's
it
an
is.
official. Okay, so yeah, you really do think Samsonov.
I mean, okay, well, again, I just said it's like basically a coin flip, so let's not get too crazy.
I'll let our
Also, but
accountant work this out.
I actually always like I said at the start that I wanted to call it the accountability czar. And then we
Oh,
laughed and we thought that was a
yes,
good name.
I
And then
do
like
like that.
everything went sideways. You changed the name of the
Oh my
channel to be
gosh.
something else. And
Well,
now
it
you're
was
calling him the accountant. And it's like, whatever you want to
okay.
do, I don't care that much.
No,
But I liked the original
sorry.
idea.
I mean, it's a little like the syllabism, the syllable, a little extra. A little doesn't roll off the tongue quite the same. But sure, accountability czar.
I, whatever you want to do. I'm okay.
How do you
So
spell czar, by the way?
CZAR, I think.
Okay, there's
Okay.
like 4 different possible spellings.
Yeah. So
I
whatever
appreciate
makes you
how
happy.
quickly you were ready to commit.
That's just what I think it is. I don't know. I could be wrong. Brian, by the way, on the Leafs, I should mention they rolled out some new lines in practice just today, so we haven't seen this in action. But Matthew Nyes on the top line with Matthews and Marner, and then Bertuzzi with Tavares and Nylander. So again, Toronto, like I said, has a good schedule next week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. So when I did my matchup maximizer last night, I did not know about these new lines. Obviously, now Matthew Nyes becomes someone I'd be interested in. Of course, that could change. Like by the end of the Monday game, like coming to Wednesday, Nyes could be back on the third line, could be healthy scratched. Who knows, right? But potentially a good stream that could be lucrative. Obviously, playing with Matthews and Marner. So Brian, let's take a break at this point, and we'll finish off part one with I don't know 2-3 more games from yesterday. We'll be back soon. All right, we are back. Welcome to Keeping Karlsson, where we're going through all the exciting games from Saturday night and talking about all the players that were noteworthy. But let's go now to the St. Louis Blues defeating the Montreal Canadiens 6-3. Look at that, Brian. You said like St. Louis stinks and they won, but of course that was against Montreal, not the toughest opponent. No offense to Habs fans, but yeah, maybe the start of something. 6 goals for St. Louis, so that means you were getting your production from Kyrou, a goal and 2 assists. I know people have been waiting a long time for that. Shen had a goal and 2 assists. Rob Thomas had a goal and an assist. Buchnevich even got a point, even though he's ice cold, but he at least did get at least 1 assist. I guess you were hoping for more. So I don't know. Maybe you could consider this signs of life from your St. Louis players, or you can just be like, don't like believe in this. It's gonna, go once they play other teams, it'll be different. I will throw out Kasperi Kapanen scored a goal in this game, and he's getting like really good deployment. Like if this was a normal Blues team like from last year, we'd be pretty stoked about Kapanen playing with Buchnevich and Rob Thomas on, I guess you'd call that the top line. But again, like how much do you want to recommend him on a team that's like having trouble scoring goals? But yeah, I don't know. I'll throw it to you, Brian. What do you think? Kasperi Kapanen interesting to you at all playing with Thomas and Buchnevich?
Yeah, top line Kasperi Kapanen. We've seen him have like at least some fleeting success there before, so I don't know why not. The piece that I wanted to add about St. Louis, though, like remember last week I went on to my little tear about how bad they are as a team, but I will this week try and balance that out just a little bit by mentioning that. Do you know how many power play goals the Blues have scored this season?
Yeah, it's 3. No, obviously I don't know. Like, why would I know that?
One. It's one. They've scored
Okay.
1 power play goal on 27 opportunities, which is also like the fewest opportunities of any team in the league. They're not even seeing 3 opportunities a game. I assume that's because like they rarely have the puck. So like teams don't really need to commit penalties to have their way with the Blues. Oh boy, I'm trending negative on the Blues again. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is the Blues are converting on less than 4% of their power play chances and less than 3% of the shots that the Blues are taking on the power play. Their power play is bad, as I said last week, but it's not this bad. All right. They deserve a little better. So before you like give up completely on any Blues, I think it is worth at least noting that there are some teams who are doing extreme, like even a bad team will score 4 times as much on the power play than the Blues have so far, at least like for conversions and chances. So St. Louis, I'll also bring up Washington, Florida, Buffalo, Minnesota, Columbus, Philly, all shooting under 8% on the power play. So if you have any guys on those teams, just keep in mind that their luck is going to turn. And in terms of converting on the power play, I mean, you've got St. Louis, Washington, Philly, and Dallas all converting at 10% or less, like of their chances. Sorry, I'm giving two different stats here. The first was shooting percentage, and the second was conversion rate on the like power play success rate. Chance goals per opportunity. So I hope that's somewhat instructive, and I think there's some like value to be found here. Like in Dallas, I kind of think of Jamie Benn, Elon, seeing that Dallas is only converting on 11% of their power play opportunities, and he's kind of been like a little fringier so far than he has last year. I assume Dallas will convert on at least twice as many of their opportunities, or around twice as many of their opportunities going forward, and Jamie Benn will be in on more of those goals.
Well, Ben does have 9 points in 10 games this year. So
yeah, okay. Sorry. I guess I hadn't checked in on him lately. There was a moment where he was looking pretty fringy.
yeah, I guess he only had 1 goal in the first 3 games. But anyways, yeah. So Dallas, maybe even Ben could be even better. Look at this guy keeping resurging his career, kind of like, I don't know, who's that like? Pavelski?
Yeah, look at that with a single power play point too.
Yeah,
That's yeah. Look at Jamie Benn.
I think Lewis and I talked about Jamie Benn when we did a really fun short shifts a couple episodes ago. Great job, by the way, this week to the short shifts team. Lewis, Jeremy Shams, another great week. Really great content. Always loving listening to those bonus shows. Well, not even bonus shows. I guess they're now regular part of the schedule for keeping Karlsson. Over on the Montreal side, I did want to mention that just like Toronto shifting up their lines today, Montreal looks like they were changing things around. They had Juraj Slafkovsky playing with Suzuki and Caulfield, which is exactly where he started last season. If you remember, Brian, we were really excited to see what he'll be able to do there. And then that quickly didn't last. But hey, might help that he did score a goal. So maybe that's something for Slafkovsky. He also played like a lot of minutes, played 18 minutes and 6 seconds in this game. So, I'm not going to like get too excited off of 1 goal, after a really slow start to the season, but definitely a guy to keep in mind. We'll see though. Obviously, like check out game day tweets and see if he's even still on the top line by next game. They did lose 6-3, like I said. So maybe that is a reason that Montreal would decide that didn't work. But also, I think you got to give a line more than just a single game, especially if you're the Habs.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you hope so for Slafkovsky. This is the
Well,
one
I don't
place
care.
to. Okay, well, it sounds like you were a little invested, but I happen to know you don't have him on your dynasty team. 18 minutes.
I don't get top
that
picks on my dynasty team, Brian. You know that.
You trade them all away. So
but I
you
do
can
have
win
Minchukov. He's my one like premier prospect because I traded Chikrin for him in a bit of a package a couple of years ago. So that's my one really awesome prospect. If you just let you know.
Yeah, no, it's good that we all know, that we all keep up. You should keep like a blog. You should blog about your dynasty.
Well, I have a podcast basically about my dynasty team.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, take it to the blog. All right. Slafkovsky, yeah, 1 goal, 1 power play goal. He scored on the power play on 4 shots. The top line deployment didn't even necessarily help him, but the power play deployment did. 18 minutes was a season high for him. And it really is line one or bust in Montreal. And even on the top line, like we know Suzuki and Caulfield are there. The third guy never really seems to do all that well anyway. Kirby Doc did for a spell, but Elon, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's the only one who's seen anything like resembling sustained success up there with them.
I think you're right.
And I don't even know that the Habs want Slafkovsky up there in the long term, right? Like maybe this little get going, kid, and we're gonna put you back down on another line that we're gonna try and get you to run and work on stuff so that one day when we can actually contend for the playoffs, you'll be ready.
Yeah, do more mistake. Do more saying in the chat here. Habs watcher here. Slav is not worth watching. He should probably be sent down to the AHL this year. Game is too fast for him right now. So yikes to Habs fans if that's true, considering the other players that were available. Well, specifically, I guess Logan Cooley. But yeah, so let's go next to this exciting game between Boston and Detroit, where the Wings edged out the Bruins 5-4. So big night, obviously, for David Pastrnak, as per usual. He's incredible. There is a guy on Boston that I wanted to bring up to you, but I don't think we've discussed him this year, even though I've been like, there's been a lot of tweets about him. There's a lot of talk in the
We
Discord, but I
definitely
guess I
should
just,
have. The last 2 weeks, I was like, I can't believe we forgot again.
yeah, but this guy, Matthew Poitras, is now officially going to be
Poitras.
Poitras is officially sticking with the team. His deployment in this loss to Detroit wasn't too exciting. They were rolling with Pasternak, Zacha, and James Van Riemsdyk, then Marchand with Coyle and DeBrusque, leaving Poitras to play with Trent Frederick and Morgan Geeky. So if that holds, then he's not worth talking about on the podcast. But he does have 7 points in 11 games, and he has had at least a couple games where he was getting really good deployment. So I don't know. I'll just do my classic, Brian. Who the heck is Matthew Poitras? Why is everyone talking about him? Is he someone we should know for this season?
Okay, Matthew Poitras is not. I don't think he like comes from. I don't think he's French, so I think we need to ease up on the French accent just a little bit for what it's worth. From Ajax, Ontario, he's 19 years old. And this is age 19 season. He was picked by the Bruins, second round, 54th overall back in 2022. Listed at 5'11", 180, so on the lighter side, but maybe he's still growing. Came off a huge year in the OHL last season before turning pro. And now, yeah, Poitras is on a 52-point pace, 4 goals, 3 assists for 7 points in 11 games, 21 shots. He's shooting 19% right now, including 24% shooting percentage at 5-on-5, which honestly, all of this makes him a decent stream because he is occasionally getting turns with some of the big names. But I think that just I think he's just a stream. But hey, that's still saying something, when you're looking at your Charlie Coyles and your Trent Fredericks and whoever else happens to be out there on a moment where Boston is playing on an off night and you're looking for a one-off guy, add Poitras to that list.
Sure. Though another guy that's probably out there for a lot of people that is a name we know a lot better is Jake DeBrusk, who we talked about before as being like so disappointing. And like classically, Brian, you had the option to add him and you decided not to make the $50 bid. And then someone else got him for $50. And since then he was doing terribly. And we were like, well, good thing you missed him. Well, guess what? This past week, DeBrusk finally started doing things. He has now 3 points in 3 straight games, like a point in each of his last 3 games is another way to say that. In his last couple of games, like in this game against Detroit where Boston lost, DeBrusk had 5 shots, his highest shot total of the season, had 4 shots in the game before versus Toronto. So who knows? Maybe this is the start of a turnaround. Obviously, you would prefer to see DeBrusk on the top power play. He still hasn't cracked that unit, but I guess getting some points is probably a step in the right direction. So I don't know. Like, obviously, this is just one good week after a slow start to the year. And like I said, the deployment is incredible. He's playing with Marchand now, at least. I take him over Poitras. Tell me if that's I think that's a reasonable thing to say. But yeah, if DeBrusk is actually a free agent right now, like a couple division, we'll see if he is, like, if I don't, get him at 3 a.m. on Monday. But yeah, he's turning it around. He had a great year last year. So he's probably someone we shouldn't be forgetting at this point. If you had like dropped him and forgotten about him, maybe check and see if he's still out there. Maybe you want to get him back.
Yeah, and I think at the very least, Elon, what you said about DeBrusk being someone you'd prefer to Poitras, yes, absolutely. DeBrusk has been good, 5 points in 5 of his last 7 since being scratched. 9 shots in DeBrusk's last 2 games, just 1 goal this season so far, despite taking a whole whack of shots, 2.5 shots per game. But DeBrusk is just shooting 4%, so that's hurting. He's still not on power play 1, that's hurting. But DeBrusk has played a few straight games with Brad Marchand. So can he get all the way up to a 64-point pace, which is what DeBrusk had last season? I don't think so, because that included pacing for 18 power play points. And if you take away that power play 1 production, it puts DeBrusk at more in the category of JJ Peterka's and Casey Middlestats, although I'll go with Peterka because I think that's the better shot rate comp. Of course, DeBrusk has more upside than Peterka for somehow finding his way onto the top power play. I love the ambivalence expressed by Andy in the chat, which is Jake will get it together probably. It just that comment starts off so assured, and then that probably is that's the key, right? And 55 points would be fine from DeBrusk, but that's not what we would have been hoping for from him on draft day. So we want that power play 1 time to come back.
Yeah. And then on the wing side of this game, huge game for David Perron, goal and 2 assists. That guy just, he keeps producing. Very exciting to see David Perron, like at this late stage of his career, still being like very valuable in fantasy, or at least I say mostly valuable most of the time. Sometimes, that was an Andy statement for me right there. Dylan Larkin, a goal and an assist. So he was good. A couple guys are cold though on Detroit that I wanted to ask you about. First of all, Alex DeBrincat, after we shone a light on him, like I guess a week or two into the season, when he was like at one point like leading the league in points. I think he was at the top of all cupful scoring. Since then, only 1 point in 5 games for DeBrincat. He still somehow has 14 points in 12 games overall, just to show how insane his start was. But yeah, Brian, like, what's happening? Is this like a clear, just like bad luck? I mean, I must be right. Like, he's so good. He's in the best deployment. He's taking a ton of shots. He had 5 shots in each of these last couple games. So I'm just putting it out there for you to easily, slam dunk this lob. I think I'm mixing up my sports here a little bit. You spike the lob and say, like, obviously DeBrincat is like someone that's
lobs.
yeah, he's gonna be like totally fine, and now's a great opportunity to get cheap if some idiot doesn't think so, right?
I would love to do like a sports trivia night about every other sport. I think you'd do better than what was just like implied.
Lob is like, I know in tennis, like it's like coming up to you really high, like
Yeah.
kind of like and then you go to like smash, smash the lob.
You
Maybe
slam dunk it.
okay.
Yeah. I'd like to. Okay, sorry. I know it's okay. DeBrincat, you're like, what?
I
Why
didn't
is
sleep
he?
much last night, Brian. Like
You are
I'm doing
doing
my best.
amazing, and you were up at ungodly hours doing Matchup Maximizer, which I hope everyone appreciates. Elon had to nap today, everyone, between podcasts. He's running himself ragged for us, so thank you, Elon. Um, yeah,
DeBrincat, just say that he's good, and we don't have to talk about him.
he's good. You don't have to worry about him. Like I made the case already that like you had a moment where you could have sold super high on him, right? Not to say that all the production was going away, but like the excitement and hype and buzz was there. And now it's decidedly not. So congrats to those of you who did trade up to like a first or second round player with DeBrincat. And to the rest of you, you will still enjoy him for most of the season, just not the way you enjoyed him for the first couple weeks.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And then also another cold streak on Detroit that I'm more concerned about is Shane Gostisbehere, who had a great start to the year, was like a point per game for a while, even more so. But now in his last 5 games, he's got absolutely nothing. Time on ice in this win against Boston, only 15 minutes and 47 seconds. He was on the top power play still, but I guess like barely playing outside of that. Like, so I think actually we had a question from Andrea in the chat where it's basically like, what am I supposed to do with Gostisbehere or something like that? Like, what is this guy? What am I missing? So it's like, how did he go from like getting all these points to absolutely nothing? Do you just average it out, or like, what are you expecting moving forward?
Yeah, well, one thing is actually, not to toot my own horn here, but a couple weeks ago I mentioned that Goss's Bears like shooting was pretty poor, and like he had just had a couple games where he had 8 shots, and like that, like way to go. But outside of those 8 shots, Goss's Bear is barely shooting. He's had more than 2 shots, just one in one of his other 10 games. He's had in his last 5. Goss's Bear has 5 shots total. So I think that's one thing that's hurting him. He's also, he only played 16 minutes against Boston on Saturday. So if the ice time falls back down from where it was in those nights where he's been, like it hasn't really stabilized all season, but he was playing 19, 20 minutes. And if he's not going to play 19 or 20 minutes anymore, that's going to hurt a little bit too. Of course, Gostisbehere is still on the power play, which should be exciting. And maybe like I want to say he should have like another power play point by now, but not a ton more. So really, Elon, I think like your question was is are we just seeing things even out? Yeah, and I think maybe there's a little more evening out to come. Because Gostisbehere, despite barely ever shooting, has 3 goals already. 2 of them are on the power play, and that's because of where he stands on the power play. So I'm gonna assume he can keep that up somewhat. But right now, Gostisbehere has fallen down to a 62-point pace. I could see that tumbling a little more as we go through the season. I'd still have him somewhere around, maybe between 50 and 55. The upside is there for him to beat 60, but he's probably going to have to shoot a little more often if he actually wants to get there.
Yeah, and to shoot more often, he's gonna have to play more often. So yeah, we'll have to see how things shake out there. I still have him like a couple team. I wasn't planning on dropping him, but I would have preferred something.
We're getting there. Yeah, you missed a sell. Would you have sold? Like, do you regret not selling?
I mean, look, like no one offered him to me, and like I don't know what the interest was. So I guess theoretically I do, but it's hard to regret since I don't know what I could have gotten. I'm not like as much like you to just kind of go out whenever I have a guy on a hot streak. And it's hard, like it's just a lot of work, to be like, all right, what can I get for Gus Spare quick? He's got
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
so many
yeah.
points. What do I do? But I probably could have done something, but I was tired. So that's why I'm not a tier one anymore with the couple, I guess. Brian, this has been so fun. We're like halfway through in terms of content, not in terms of time. We're, I was definitely wrong with my
Oh
prediction that this was going to be
gosh.
a tight show. So let's end part one here, and we'll come back for a super tight part two where we'll talk through the rest of these games. It's been so fun, Brian. Just the time flies when I'm chatting with you. But yeah, hopefully everyone's been enjoying the show. If you want to get part two, just make sure you're subscribed to Keeping Karlsson. It should already be there waiting for you. If it's not already there waiting for you, sorry to say, I think you're doing it wrong. And it also helps us a lot if you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. So go subscribe to Keeping Karlsson. We'll see you soon on the other side. Bye. It is 9:24 p.m. on Sunday, November 5th. Way too late to be starting part two, but here we are. And we've been discussing some NHL games from Saturday. There are a couple games happening on Sunday as we record. The Devils are up 3-1 against the Blackhawks. Vegas up 2-0 versus Anaheim. But Brian, we're still going to be talking through Saturday. It's been a blast so far. How are you feeling? You ready to storm through the rest of these teams and games from yesterday's action? There's a lot of big stuff still to talk about.
Just to like, I don't want to like toot your horn too much, but like you did the Thursday short shifts and the Saturday night, Sunday morning matchup maximizer. Now this is like a podcast marathon. So thank you for being here. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm so ready.
I'm like the UC Saros of podcasting, I guess. They just throw me off for every game. Though
Yeah,
actually,
except you actually started tonight instead of getting replaced at the last second.
right, yeah, that Lankinen start. I don't know why
That was
that was
weird.
weird, right? They tweeted out like the actual Nashville official Twitter account tweeted out their like UC Stardos, then had to delete the
They love
tweet.
doing that. I hate it's like the team Twitter. I know everyone hates the Vegas Twitter. I hate the Nashville Twitter
Okay, good
because
to know.
I can't remember what we got into an argument with them once over something.
Oh, I do remember. Okay, I'll try to remember it for
They
later. It
think
was something really annoying.
it was
But
something
anyway,
definitely something to do with lines. And
lines
but
are like starting goalie.
what they should have done, and I feel like that, yeah, I don't like the person who are like the personality shows through. They think they're funny and cool, but they're not.
Okay,
The
you've heard it here first.
uh yeah, they should have like quote tweeted
Brian, we got a
the
lot to do, as I
Saros
said.
tweet and corrected themselves rather than just disappearing it. And oh
Yeah,
yeah, no, it was always LinkedIn. Come on,
come on.
be
Okay,
professional.
idiots.
Although
Idiots.
we know not to expect that from the Nashville Twitter.
Let's start a beef. We have a very one-sided beef.
I
They
think
don't know who we are.
we sort of did.
Okay. So, Brian, going back to the games from yesterday, the next one I want to hit up is the Carolina Hurricanes beating the Islanders 4-3. Must have been an exciting game, I'd imagine. I was actually out last night, Brian. I went to a party. That's what got me in all this trouble in the first place. I like
Social
drank.
butterfly.
I drank a lot more than I normally do. I mean, Social Butterfly was my first time going out in like 3 weeks, but since we were in Ottawa, pretty much. But anyways, I had a fun time. Then I came back. I was like, wow, there's a lot of games to look at what happened. So I'm figuring this out as we go. But yeah, with Carolina, they won the game, which is good for them. On the downside for them, again, I want to kind of like just be a wet blanket here and point out some cold streaks. Brent Burns didn't get any points in the 4 goals, and you know what? He hasn't gotten a point in a lot of the recent games. He's actually pointless in 6 games now, Brent Burns. He's down to 4 points in 12 games. And we talked about recently how he was bumped from the top power play. Like that's held. Like he hasn't gotten more than 50% power play time since the first game of the season. And it was only 26% yesterday. He did take 6 shots. So that's the good thing. That's the classic Brent Burns. In the game before, it was only 1 shot. Like we talked about just recently on part 1 about Shane Gostisbehere, and like at what point does he become a drop? I wonder, like maybe you can do a little compare and contrast here. Like at what point do you just like cut bait on Brent Burns, who's not in a great position with the power play and just hasn't been doing anything for a long time now?
I mean, what's weird is that we thought Burns or D'Angelo would do well on the Canes power play, and neither of them have managed to do that. At 5-on-5, Brent Burns, he's shooting like crazy. All right. And the only points he's gotten at 5-on-5 are on goals, not getting in on any of the assists, even though Carolina is scoring a bunch with Brent Burns on the ice. They're not having any problems converting shots into goals, but Brent Burns is just not getting in on the action. Just a 9% points participation, which is like really like we talk about 0% guys like Barrett Hayton, and it usually like there's not much room for forwards between or even defensemen between 0 and like 30 or 40%. But Brent Burns with just that lone goal was his only point, even though he's been on the ice for 11 Canes goals at 5-on-5, has yet to get an assist. So Elon, I think he deserves better. I think Brent Burns can do a little better, and also just has 4 points on 18 goals total at all strengths while he's on the ice. And according to his usual points participation rates, Brent Burns would have like 8 points in that span, which in 12 games would look pretty good. So Elon, I if I had Brent Burns, I wouldn't be giving up on him entirely, especially because his 5-on-5 shot rates are looking still like pretty sweet. He's still almost registering 3 shots per night, which is what you want to see from him. And I think this might be a nice buy low moment from Brent Burns, except for the fact, of course, that he's not on a top power play unit. That's kind of a bummer. And I
Yeah,
don't
so maybe
really
we're
know what to
looking at
say
like,
about that.
even if he turns it around, we might be looking at like a 45, 50 point guy regardless, but like
Yeah.
with a lot of shots, that could still be
Yeah.
worthwhile. Yeah. Also Martin Necas, he did get an assist in this game, but he's been cold himself. Only now like 1 point in 4 games. That broke a 3-game pointless streak. Before that, he was super red hot. So just wanted a quick check in. Like Necas, anything to worry about here, or was that just like a random cold stretch and now he's gonna get a point streak going again?
Yeah, I'm not worried.
Okay. All right. And then so that game was against the New York Islanders. And I actually didn't have anything written down to talk about with the Islanders, though I can point out that in this game where the Islanders, like I said, got the well, no, they lost, but they scored 3 goals. So it was Matt Barzal, who's having a nice, okay-ish start to the season, right? Like Barzal's up to now 8 points in 10 games, which I think is pretty good for where you probably got him in drafts. Bo Horvat had a couple of assists. Basically, the guys you'd expect to do well did well in that game. So not too much to discuss. So let's go to but Brian has something. Ooh,
I was just gonna
intrigue.
remark on like no, it's not that big of a deal. Here, it's all I already regret raising my hand. We just haven't talked a whole lot about Bo Horvat this season, who is up to 9 points in 10 games. Like he is cruising, and he's doing basically he's pacing for the same thing he did last season, and taking 4 shots, well, rounded up to 4 shots per night, which is crazy. He's only ever been a 3 shots per night guy, but Horvat already has 37 shots in 10 games, which is great to see, right? Because the more shots this guy takes, he's a high-end converter, although he's converting only at 11% instead of the 12 to 15 that we've been accustomed to seeing from Horvat. So I'm excited about what we're seeing. And I think, Elon, you said Barzal was good value at the draft table. I bet Horvat was too.
Yeah, I mean, no one likes Islanders. Like, I'm sure Paul Mary is still free agent everywhere. Yeah. But there you go. They score some goals sometimes. Let's go next to this blowout of the Kings over the Flyers. You got to feel bad for the Flyers, right? Like they started the season pretty well, and now it's happening like always. Carter Hart's injured. Couturier's injured. I'm sure it won't be long before more people get injured. I'm not trying to wish ill on Philly, but they have some sort of jinx. I don't know. Anyways, with Cam, with Carter Hart injured, they just are in so much trouble. Like Cal Peterson played this game for them against LA, and it did not go well. Cal Peterson is clearly not an NHL goalie. Trev, you can mark that down. We can check back in on a month. I'm not too concerned about saying that. So I guess Ersson is probably going to get a lot of games because it was a back-to-back. That's the reason why Peterson played. But man, like
he was brutal. Like how many more chances does Cal Peterson get?
Yeah, he's done. Yeah, Ersson actually did have a good game after a slow start to the year, for what it's worth. I have. Yeah. Oh, sorry. We could talk more about Peterson. I was gonna say that Ersson might be someone to grab. I don't think he's like so bad, but I think Philly is going to have some tough times ahead. Like I said, Couturier, also the number 1 center, injured, so it's not looking great. Did you want to say more like insults to Cal Peterson?
No, not
I'm
really.
Happy to.
884 save percentage with Leahy Valley of the AHL so far this season in 4 games, where Peterson sports a 1-3 record. Yeah, what happened to this guy?
You know who he's like? He's like Scott Darling. He got like a big contract and then disappeared out of the league like so quickly.
Yeah, but Scott Darling at least like played well for a while.
So did Cal Peterson. How did he get the 3-year, $5 million a year contract? He had a couple good seasons.
I feel like it was just on his pedigree.
No, I think he was good. I think he was pretty good.
What's the Cal Peterson run that I'm forgetting here?
I don't know. He and played sometimes when Jonathan Quick didn't play, and he looks
Yeah, but
good.
that's not like a like LA.
I don't.
I think they just believed in him.
Anyway, who cares? Let's
I
go on to.
will. I want to answer my own trivia question.
Okay, well, let's talk about the other goalie in LA that's actually in LA right now that you definitely didn't believe in, but I'm curious to get your current opinion on Cam Talbot,
Oh,
who
you're gonna
had.
love it. I've got a good one for you.
All right, I'm excited about. He's coming off now a shutout over Philly, so a really huge game there, and only 24 shots against, but hey, we stopped all of them. Not too shabby. Cam Talbot's just like on a roll. He's playing like most of the games. He's like the UC Stardos over there in LA. Definitely doesn't seem like Phoenix Copley is much of a challenge at all, and I wonder how long Copley even stays in the NHL with how bad his performances have been so far, but we'll see. But yeah, it seems like Cam Talbot's the volume starter. He's up to a 923 save percentage. Like you might, and I wouldn't disagree with you if you are going to say that he's going to probably go down in that save percentage, but I will say that he's probably going to play a lot, and LA is a really good team. I expect Talbot to be worth holding for the rest of the season, I think. What do
Yeah,
you think?
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. So, but I guess the where I'm gonna try and irk you is by well, I'll paint the picture first. So first, Cam Talbot's putting up his best personal numbers at 5-on-5 since 2016-17, which was his second year with Edmonton, and the bar was not too high to
Ooh,
clear.
and who was his coach at that time?
Oh, did it happen to be Todd McClellan?
I would imagine that's I remember was the everyone was saying going into the year the reason why they think Talbot will be decent is because he works well with McClellan's
He
system, and
works.
here we go.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe that's part of it. But one reason why I think Talbot works so well with McClellan's system is that McClellan's system is very, very protective of its goalie.
Mm-hmm.
Like Talbot is getting to turn away a lot of lower danger shots. In
I
fact,
love it.
LA is second in the league in shot suppression, right, or in expected goal suppression this season at 5-on-5. And they're also a good team, right? They can also score. So if their goalie, Cam Talbot, can just be okay, then he's valuable. And the comp that I was going to make, Elon, and like, I don't want you to take this fully the wrong way. This is not me still trying to be right about anything because I wish I was higher on Talbot coming into the year. You were right. And I thought there was no way that Talbot would survive in LA, but I didn't know how well they'd protect him so that he could. But I'm
Let's
getting
hear
like,
this. Can I guess? So Cal
yeah,
Peterson?
no,
No.
no. I'm getting Devin Dubnyk in Minnesota vibes from Cam
Well,
Talbot,
look,
which is
I'm a,
great. That's great for
yeah,
fantasy value,
like I'm a
which is all
fantasy.
you. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Like I'm not here saying I don't even care, right? If Cam Talbot's actually a good goalie or not. I just care if he's someone that I want on my fantasy team. The answer is yes, just like
I
how
just,
great Devin Dubnyk was.
I just was worried it would sound like sour grapes or like an underhanded compliment, but like I
Wasn't
really
Devin
do.
Dubnyk like a top 10 fantasy goalie
He
for
was
like a couple
fantastic
years?
in Minnesota, like tons of volume, but only ever played average, like and like just barely at that. And that's what
Well,
Cam Talbot's being asked to do in LA. So as long as he can keep doing that and stay healthy, and the shot suppression continues around him, then wait, yeah, Talbot's your uncle. It's
yeah.
amazing.
And also if Phoenix Copley continues to stink, so there's no other options for the Kings, that helps too. Okay, I want to talk about a couple of these. I want to talk about a couple of these guys. You said Kings could score some goals. Let's talk about some of these people who know how to score some goals for LA. So in this game, Arthur Kaliev scored a goal and had an assist. Kaliev is someone who started really slow at the start of the year. Well, actually started suspended. I guess that's like the slowest you can start. But since then, he's like been in like on the Phil Deneau line. Arvidsson's been injured the whole time. So eventually, I guess something will have to happen there. But in the meantime, Kaliev slowly but surely 7 points in 9 games. He's someone that I added to my couple team a couple weeks ago because I needed a right wing. We've like, chronicled how tough it is sometimes to find right wing. I added him as just a stream because I was able to fit him in whatever, like 2 games in 3 days type thing. And I just like haven't seen a reason to drop him yet. And I'm especially happy after this goal and assist versus Philly. I'll roll him for next week and see how it goes, especially because he's had taken like 2, 3, 4 shots most games. So yeah, I definitely don't want Trev to write down here that Elon's like crazy high on Kaliev, but I think he is someone worth considering, especially if you need an RW on your team. And then the other guy I'll throw at you, and then you could tackle them both. Quinton Byfield, quietly looking really good lately. He had 3 assists in this win over Philly, bring him to 10 points in 11 games. Like, is Quinton Byfield finally doing the thing? Is he like Casey Middlestat here? Maybe better. Like, obviously, people were expecting at some point Byfield's going to be a superstar. I don't know if you call this a superstar just yet, but 75-point pace so far after this 3-point game against Philly.
Yeah. Yeah. Byfield's off to a great start this season. And one thing that's always been challenging about rostering Byfield is that the shots haven't been there. And I'm going to mention that the shots still aren't there. Like he's still taking just 1.5 shots per game, but his shot attempt rates are up. And they're just not showing yet in his actual shot on goal rates. So I wonder if there is room for Byfield to grow this year because he's already doing it right. Just more the increased shot attempts have just been missing the net or getting blocked. And maybe it's just a matter of time until Byfield is like 2 shots per game, which would be great. His on ice expected goals rates are also fantastic. Like that top line in LA, Kopitar, Kempe, Byfield is clicking. They're on the high end of what most lines generate in terms of expected offense. So good for Byfield, good for him. It's still frustrating. Like I have him on my team, and he had 6 assists in 3 games on my couple team. I have him, but also just 3 shots. So like really, the 3 assists really helped, but the 1 assist game with no shots is like streamer territory. Like
Yeah.
it's not that rewarding when the guy just gets apples. So I am hopeful that these extra shot attempts will actually start to become shots on goal. There's hope. There seems to be a bit of a step forward for Byfield this year, and that's great. As for Kaliev, is 2 power play goals so far. So that's helped him to 3 goals overall, 4 assists, 7 points in 9 games for Arthur Kaliev. Nice shot rates from that checking line, quote unquote, in Arvidsson's spot. And I think Kaliev, Elon, like I think he's a good find for you. Like I think he fits right in with that Deneau line in terms of value. Like Deneau, Trevor Moore, Victor Arvidsson, and now Kaliev. They seem to at least be able to put up like 2 or 3 shots and sometimes go on little runs, and they're not bad options to stream when LA has a good schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have
I think
Byfield, and I'm trying to decide if I'm going to hold him, even though he's only going to play 1 game for me this week.
mm,
I'm leaning
it,
no.
yeah, I think I would drop, but you gotta sometimes be ruthless and get those games played, especially if it's a guy like you said
Exactly.
that doesn't shoot much.
Yeah.
I like how you said Callie. I was like a good guy for. I know you didn't mean it this way, but like thinks to me like he's a good guy for me. Like as someone with a crappy team, like for me he's like pretty good. Like for
Yeah,
for like
he's a
someone
good.
that's a contender, I don't know how good he is, but like for me he's good.
Yeah.
Uh,
By the way, Cal Peterson, I found the run that he got paid on.
yeah,
It was in the COVID season when they started in January. He had a great late January to early April where he was a 929 goalie over 18 games.
there you go.
And he signed a contract that September for $15 million.
Man,
Amazing. That's
I
all it
wouldn't
took.
mind. I wouldn't mind. Okay, Brian, let's I want to talk about one more player on LA here because we've had a couple of questions. A Costi 46 on Twitter was like, can you talk about PLD on your next episode? LA seems to be performing well offensively, but PLD is becoming droppable. Thanks. And then Franklin in our Discord said Pierre-Luc Dubois struggles. His shots are down in the last 5 games. His hits and blocks are down too. So yeah, no points for Dubois in this 5-0 win over Philly. He's down now to only 6 points in 11 games. That's like a 45-point pace. Not someone worth rostering in fantasy. Only 2 shots per game on average this season, which is below replacement level. Not many hits, less than a hit a game. Yeah, like if we didn't know his name and we were just looking at these box scores, we'd be like, Pierre-Luc Dubois is definitely not someone you need to roster. So is there like what's like aside from just saying that he had a 71-point pace last year, is there any other reason for hope for PLD? Maybe just his role, and LA's winning, they're doing well. Like, is it possible that he's just not going to be a big point producer on this team?
Every freaking year with Pierre-Luc Dubois, we have this conversation, right? Like, and it's just a legit conversation. It's crazy. It's like he's always doing the right things and looks good, but not cashing in as much as we think he should be. And I don't know if it's a relief or not to hear that that's the situation again. Like, by the way, Dubois is doing great at 5-on-5, maybe even a little too good. And that's making up for the fact that Dubois has no power play points yet so far this season, where he's mostly been playing on the top unit. But I think he might have seen some turns on the second unit last game and a little decrease in Dubois' time on ice. So that's a little trend to keep watching out for. But I think this power play situation for Dubois is going to improve, and that's going to lift his numbers to where you might have expected them to be at the start of the year, like in the mid 60s kind of range. Upside for more, but I'm not sure the opportunity for more is there based on how the Kings deploy their lines. The Kings on the power play are just shooting 7.5% as a team, which is bad. And they have scored 9 power play goals. But Dubois has only been on the ice for 3 of them. And like I said, he hasn't pointed on any. So I think he's going to be fine. This just looks like bad variance on the power play for me. So as I've said a lot the last couple of years, I've been right both times about Pierre-Luc Dubois. Overall, everything's going to be okay. But there are going to be these weird spells where he's not doing anything, which are very, very frustrating to hold through.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair. Of course, I guess a counterpoint could be that this is a new situation and LA is such like a deep team that they have 2 other lines we've already discussed, right? There's the Kopitar, Byfield, Kempe line. Then there's this Moore, Deneau, Kaliev line, which plays like a lot of minutes. So it doesn't like Dubois playing with Fiala, who's great, and Alex Laferriere. But I think you call that the third line. I'm not sure, but it doesn't matter,
Yeah,
right? It's
you
just like
do.
they're not like they're not in the premier scoring role potentially that Dubois has been in the past. So that would be like something that concerns me a bit. But you are right, of course, that he has a history of starting slow and doing well. So hopefully for Dubois managers, you're right. You're saying to hold and be patient. He's still on the top power play at least. So I guess as long as that's the case, he's better than Byard Hayton. But we'll see. I guess it'll be the kind of thing also that'll be a good one to write down, I think, to check back in and see if Brian's prediction was correct, that this was just a classic Dubois, or if something is awry here over in LA. But Brian, we still have a few more games to get to. By a few, I mean, I guess 6, and then today's games. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm having a blast. We'll take a break. We'll be back soon. Okay, Brian, let's go to another exciting game here where the Wild beat the Rangers 5-4 in a shootout. Wow. Okay, that's exciting. Over in Minnesota, obviously the big news is that Matt Boldy is back on the team, which is great for them. And he went right to a top line with Kirill Kaprizov and Marco Rossi. Okay, what? Hold it. Hit the brakes, beep, 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 back up. It's a reference to something I don't even remember, probably Simpsons. But anyways, this is a whole new situation now in Minnesota where, it used to be Zuccarello and Hartman and Kaprizov. And now with everyone healthy, Zuccarello and Hartman have been playing with Marcus Johansson. And yeah, Kaprizov, Boldy, and Rossi. And then you look at the top power play in this game, it was all forwards, Brian. It was Boldy, Kaprizov, Rossi, Eriksson Ek, and Marcus Johansson taking the spot that you would have expected a Kalen Addison or whoever to be in. Moving forward, of course, apparently Jared Spurgeon is close. I think this probably is a sign that maybe Jared Spurgeon is going to get a shot back on that top power play. It's just me guessing. I haven't seen anything to that effect. But Spurgeon's definitely been there in the past. So if he's available free agency, he might be interesting. If he's going to get better treatment than he did last year, where Addison was ahead. But yeah, I guess the main guys to talk about are Matt Boldy, who's returned, and he now has 3 points in 2 games since returning, all assists, 4 shots in the 2 games. He had an assist and 3 shots against the Rangers. So there's him for sure. And then, yeah, we got to talk about Marco Rossi, who might be available in a lot of leagues. And as of this moment, he is a top line, top power play guy, and quite the top line, right? If you're playing with Boldy and Kaprizov, you just got the best 2 right there. No, not to shortchange Joel Eriksson Ek, but yeah, Rossi had himself a goal against the Rangers, a goal and an assist in the previous game versus the Devils. We're up to 6 points in 6 games for Marco Rossi. So I guess similar to with Byfield, I got to ask, maybe is this the breakout we've been waiting for? And is he going to just keep this up to some extent for the rest of the season and be a hold? Or is this just yeah, whatever. I haven't seen enough yet to be confident that Marco Rossi is anything more than a streamer. Though Minnesota, I think, does play a good schedule this week. So that would be a reason to grab him regardless.
Yeah, grab Rossi for that schedule regardless. But also it's exciting to see signs of life for basically the first time for Marco Rossi. And we've all speculated, right? I think we've at least, so many of us have drafted or just picked up Rossi and waited for the moment to see if he would catch fire while we had him. And it's nice to see that finally happen. Actually, Elon, this reminded me, It feels like a long time ago. I thought it was further back, but on October 24th, so that's like 2 weeks ago, Steven, who's in the tier two of the Cupful, asked us in our ask and answer section on our Discord server, in a dynasty salary cap league, would you trade Rossi for Hayton? And he said he's in win now mode. Hates giving up Rossi's ELC next year unless we think Hayton way outperforms Rossi this year.
Oh
Then it
no.
could be worth it.
I
And you
probably
were
said to go
like,
Hayton.
yeah, yeah, I think so. Hayton's top line, top power play. Rossi isn't near any of those, and you're win now. And I responded, yeah, I'd also go for it. Rossi is so far from a sure thing at this point, and Hayton seems like he'll be a top line, top power play fixture for a while. And look at
Okay,
us
well,
now. So
I
Steve,
yeah.
what? Yeah, no, Steven, I hope you're doing okay. Shout out to you. Sometimes we get it wrong. Well, maybe we're not wrong, right? Like I actually, I
Well,
don't
yeah, you
know.
said
I was gonna
before that you
say I
think
still
Hayton's going
want
to be
Hayden.
good.
I still think Hayden's gonna be good, but now I just don't know how good Rossi's gonna be, right? Like if this is his moment, then that's kind of exciting. And like that's what Steven was saying. Like I just can't keep waiting on this guy. I need to win now. But maybe Marco Rossi can help you win now. He's got 4 shots, Rossi, in 3 of his last 4 games, 5 goals on his last 16 shots over 6 games. As you mentioned, Elon Rossi's on the top power play last game and played a season high uh, time on ice, more than 20 minutes in 2 games straight. Sorry, no, and had a season high time on ice in his last game, and has also played more than 20 minutes in 2 straight. Rossi also blocks a little bit. So, yeah, has the 22-year-old arrived? I don't know. I love him on line one. I love, by the way, the 5 forward power play. Like, you were like, will Jared Spurgeon go back there? I don't know why he would. Like, it's not exciting unless it's like a Klingberg Shabbat situation where, like, they just don't care. It's like, yeah, the power play is good enough. We don't need everyone to get points. And I think if Rossi does stay up on the top line and top power play, this is bad news for a couple people, right? Namely Ryan Hartman and Matt Zuccarello. Like Eriksson Ek is going to be okay, but it's less likely that he's going to play with Matt Boldy potentially, based on the lines we most recently saw anyway. So, uh, yeah, go get your Marco Rossi, especially for this upcoming week. And Rossi versus Hayton beyond this year is now a much more interesting question than it was even 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Well, I think beyond this year, I would definitely go Rossi. I was saying maybe for this year, it seemed like Hayton was going to be better. And now who even knows about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So next up, Brian, I wanted to go to this game. Or no, I guess it's actually what. Okay. Sorry. Also, Brian, on Minnesota, we had a question from Trev, our accountability czar / accountant. How patient to be with Philip Gustafsson? So it's a very good question. I think we talked about him on a recent show, and you had some hope for him after his great year last year, but like he continues to be really bad. He let in 3 goals on not too many shots. Actually, on 4 shots. What? Oh, so he got pulled in this game against the Rangers. I'm seeing after letting in 3 goals and 4 shots. That sucks, man. And before that, he let in 5 goals against New Jersey. So Gustafsson is like dropping negatives on his fantasy managers. Like there's obviously the discussion to be had of like how much of a challenger is Fleury, but it's kind of like what we were talking about before with Skinner and Campbell. Like, does it, if they suck, they suck. Like, it doesn't matter, right? So, how much of a leash are you holding for Philip Gustafsson at this point as like probably a tandem guy who's really struggling?
Yeah, well, Philip Gustafsson so far has been Jack Campbell bad at 5-on-5 this year. Marc-Andre Fleury has been somewhere between Campbell bad and Skinner bad. I'm glad we brought them up early on so I can just kind of keep making these comparisons. Minnesota's protection is like kind of mid-pack in terms of what they offer their goalies. So, yeah, whoever's in net is going to need to do some work, and neither Gustafsson or Fleury seem up to it so far. And like, I don't know. I was really mad at there was not mad. I was sad at the start of the season when I was talking up Gustafsson and I ended up with no stocks in him. And I thought he was like a sure thing. And now I'm like, I guess I'm a little relieved, but also sad that I got it wrong. And hopefully like didn't impact too many others. Gustafsson had his confidence struggles in Ottawa, but the difference in Minnesota is that I think the organization has told him they believe in him. And the good news for Gustafsson is that Fleury is playing poorly, right? So I still wonder if Gustafsson makes a good buy low. Like I'm still a believer. Like you get on the bus, hope it leaves the station, or you walk off. Like, or if you're done with it, you get off the bus and take the train or call an Uber. I don't know.
Yeah.
Find some other mode of goalie transportation. I still believe, but I like permission to move on if you're ready until you see more. But I
Yeah.
do think like the upside is still huge for Gustafsson if he can find his game.
I guess like my style of playing for what it's worth. I don't know how much that is, but like I wouldn't hold him in cupful. Like if he's not a sure starter and he's struggling, it's like what am I holding on for?
What
I'd
about
rather
this
oh,
four
hit
game
me.
week? Would you hold him through it?
I guess I'd have to, yeah. So you look at the schedule, you see, I guess you're going to get 2 games. Make sure you're going to get both of his games. It's scary. Like, okay, let's actually look at it. Okay. So, because I want to see who he's even playing. Like, I don't want to get a negative dropped on me. I know that's like unlikely, though. With him, it's been like more likely lately. So, Minnesota goes the Islanders on Tuesday. I guess that's okay. Rangers Thursday. Well, he just got destroyed by the Rangers. And then Buffalo and Dallas. Yeah, it's like not cakewalks. There's no San Jose in there to help turn things around, like for Tristan Jarry. So, I don't know. Probably a hold on, depending on your options. Also, we only have 4 moves a week, so you have to take that into account. Maybe just get your 2 goalie games. But yeah, once it's a 3 game week, especially then, like I'd be, to me, he's like a tandem guy who's struggling. So the only struggling goalies I'd want to hold are like a Tristan Jarry, who at least is the starter. Like he'll keep getting chances, but like Fleury's in
I get
there
that.
getting a lot of games. Yeah,
Yeah.
but who knows? All right. Let's go to the next game. All right, pal. Let's go to the Panthers against the Blackhawks. Nice upset win for Chicago. Weren't able to continue it today. They did lose to New Jersey. So maybe we'll talk about Chicago in just a sec. But let's start in Florida, who lost the game. They also lost Sam Bennett way at the start of the week. So just like putting a bow on that. The lines in Florida kind of interesting now. It looks like Anton Lundell has been getting an opportunity to play with Reinhart and Luosterainen. And in this game against Chicago, Barkov and Matthew Tkachuk played with Carter Verhaeghe. So Barkov and Verhaeghe reunited. The thing is, like it didn't work out well. So I wouldn't be surprised if things are different for Florida's next game. So maybe you don't want to read too much into it. The thing is, Florida has the best schedule next week. They play all off days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. But I don't know who to go for. And like if also what to do. Like let's say if you have someone like Evan Rodriguez, who in that game, Brian, was bumped to the third line, and Rodriguez is like on a cold streak, and he wasn't on the top power play. So he just got a huge demotion. He did take 4 shots for what it's worth. Didn't get a point. But yeah, so we're pointless in 4 games for Rodriguez and a demotion, but Florida has 4 games on all off days next week. And also, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if the lines shake up again. So if I had Rodriguez right now, I definitely would hold at least to see the lines tomorrow, like just in
Like in
case.
practice, even.
Yeah. Yeah, like just to get the game day tweets, Florida's pretty good. They seem to always have lines tweeted out. So you might, and they're usually early in the morning. So you might not have to wait long to see what the next game plan is for Erod. But obviously it's concerning. And I feel bad I was definitely pumping him up early in the season. Everything was just looking so great. He was taking so many shots. He was in this amazing deployment. But I guess all it took was a little bit of a cold stretch and, boom, third line, second power play, useless. Like if he stays in that deployment, he's useless beyond just like a good schedule, of course.
Yeah, and he's found himself in this deployment often in his career. He's been there more than he's been on the top line and top power play. But Elon, like don't be too hard on yourself. Like we said, if he's top line, top power play, you want him. Now he's not, so maybe you don't. But like you said, Elon, I would at least wait to see how the lines are looking in practice to see if the Panthers have shuffled things around again and Rodriguez has gained good deployment. And even 4 shots in just under 15 minutes of ice time against Chicago. Now that is against Chicago, keep in mind. So not to say he'll be able to do that if he plays less than 15 minutes in the next 4 games from the third line. But yeah, it's at least time to consider. If it weren't for the schedule, Elon, I think we'd both be saying like, yeah, pretty close to dropping him with the schedule. Just keep an eye before you find yourself snoozing.
Yeah, so definitely something to watch. So on the other side was Chicago, who, like I said, also played today. So if we want to take a look at the latest, like the big news out of Chicago is that Taylor Hall's back, right? And he's now got goals in 2 straight games. I was like really over Taylor Hall before he got injured. I actually dropped him in like a couple division even before he got injured. It was actually really annoying because I dropped him and then like a couple hours later it was announced that he's going to miss time and I could have just like stashed him in IR. So what now that he's come back and scored a couple goals, like it's a little bit frustrating, but at the same time, he didn't even get top line deployment today, right? Like it was Bedard playing with Foligno and Kurashev, and Hall playing with Tyler Johnson and Jason Dickinson. Hall, of course, was on the top power play at the very least. So yeah, Brian, is he the kind of guy who you're like jumping all over if he's in free agency now that he's back? Or like I'm kind of, but maybe I'm biased because I want to like be proven right in dropping him, but I still kind of feel okay with having dropped him. I tend to have this happen to me. I remember one season I dropped Andre Palat, which was like kind of a guy who was rostered in most couple divisions, and then he like scored or he had a really good game in his next game, and I was like, oh, classic. But then he ended up turning out to be an okay drop, and I think that's going to happen with Taylor Hall also. But curious to get your take on a former Brian favorite, Taylor Hall.
Yeah, I'm in the same place as you on Taylor Hall, Elon. Like you could go get him. The Chicago only plays twice this week, and I think their first game is Thursday, and which is a busy day. And then I think they play, is it Sunday? So they have like if you can like stream, keep Hall in mind as like the end of the week stream if you need to move to try and win your matchup on the last day. But I'm with you, Elon. Taylor Hall, a little 3-game point streak, which is great. 8 shots, 2 goals, 1 assist. That's nice, but he's just on the top power play. If he's not playing with Bedard at 5-on-5, yeah, I'm not that excited about his prospect. So I think he's someone who could pay off as a stream, but I'm with you. I'm not holding on too tight to Taylor Hall.
One guy that I was planning on like looking to see what he was going to do today was Jared Tenorti because he had such a crazy game for Periffs against Florida. He had 5 hits and 9 blocks. So I was curious to see how he'd follow that up. And it looks like he didn't even play today. I don't know if he was like injured or scratched. So I was planning on coming on the show potentially being like, oh, maybe if you're in a bangers league, take a look at Jared Tenorti. But if he's not playing, obviously that makes him a lot less interesting. So we could just move on. Oh, except I was going to bring up that Mrazek has been really good. And I think you had something you wanted to say about Mrazek. Like it's really tricky because it seems like Chicago, regardless of how well Mrazek is playing, they're not going to, give him a lot of games. And I think it probably makes sense because of his injury history. But when he plays, like he has a lot of opportunity to make saves just because Chicago lets in so many shots. And so far, he's like been up to the challenge. Like I still feel like deep down, Petr Mrazek still sucks. I don't mean deep down in me, like in him. Like regardless of like how well he's doing, I still feel like eventually it'll come out that he's bad and he won't be able to hold up. But you got to give him credit, right? Like so far so good.
Yeah, you got to give him credit. And Elon, remember how long it took me to give up on Petr Mrazek? Like there was a long time where I was like, but I think he's good. But he was in Carolina, right? So it was like a stop 18 of 20 situation. He wasn't that helpful to a lot of fantasy managers and injured a lot. But Mrazek has honestly rarely been very bad. All right. His first year in Toronto, his 1 year in Toronto was awful. And Mrazek also played a part of a year in Philadelphia. He was also awful there. But outside that, Mrazek has been close to good enough, often enough that, that's why I've always kind of held a candle for him. And in a volume situation, if Mrazek can just be good enough, that's really nice here. Like in our cupful scoring, even without the wins, and like we've bumped up the value of wins, but even without them, if you can just do pretty well on high volume, you're a really good and valuable goalie. And I think there's a chance Mrazek can do that. It's just unfortunate that he's just alternating every game. Like he's in one of these situations we were talking about earlier about these rigid game on, game off that rarely change kind of rotations.
Yeah. Okay. So next up, we have Dallas against Vancouver, and the Canucks just keep their good season going with a 2-0 shutout. Demko looking like just really great. And I want to actually, though, Brian, talk about a couple of defensemen here on each team. here on each team. Like on Dallas, we have Miro Heiskanen, who is super cold, only 1 point in his last 6 games. He is being outshone like big time, as is every other defenseman in the league at this point, by Quinn Hughes on Vancouver, who is having such an insane start to his season. 16 points in 11 games, 3.7 shots per game, Brian. I'll repeat that, 3.7 shots per game for Quinn Hughes.
He's following through.
Is it fair to say, Brian, if we were to do a redraft right now for this season of Cupful, like there's a strong argument to be made that Quinn Hughes is the top fantasy defenseman. Like you take him ahead of everyone else. Like right now he has the most points by far. And I don't see any, like if he's a shooter, like he already was great for points. Now he's scoring some goals. He's doing it all. So I think Trev, write this down, but I'm going to say right now, like I think Quinn Hughes might be the top D in fantasy. And I think we all really blew it. I think a lot of people probably took Miro Heiskanen ahead of him. and are really regretting it right now. And so, Brian, I obviously want you to dive into both here. Why is Heiskanen so cold? And do you concur that Quinn Hughes may just be the number one defenseman in fantasy?
So Heiskanen, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier about the Dallas power play. They're struggling, and that's where Heiskanen's struggling too. Like last year, Heiskanen paced for 76 points, but paced for 35 power play points. So right now, Heiskanen's on a 41 point pace with 2 power play points. And that I feel like that all tells the story. For as long as the Stars aren't producing on the power play, that is Heiskanen at like a 45 point pace. He's also not shooting. Like that part is a little is kind of concerning. And I can't quite figure out the reason why. If anyone who watches Dallas on the regular or follows them really closely wants to chime in and let us know. Like I see his shot rates are down at 5-on-5. And I don't know if it's because Heiskanen's been asked to play a different game or this is just like a funny little start, or maybe he's nursing some kind of small injury. I'm not sure, but I don't love what I see from Miro Heiskanen, just in terms of getting those shots back. And like I said, he'll go as far as the Dallas power play goes, which so far has not been very far. So hang on, and I think he's going to be okay. I think I have also said that Heiskanen might have overperformed just a little last year too. So losing some shots and losing some points, and to obviously makes him a little less attractive to anyone who thought maybe he was still going to continue on that upwards trajectory this season. As for Quinn Hughes, yeah, he's been incredible. He's like head and shoulders above the rest. It goes Hughes just over 7 points in our cupful scoring system, followed by Noah Dobson, and then followed by Cale Makar, who's like a full fantasy point per game behind Quinn Hughes, which is like, that's a big gap. And then the rest of the pack follows. In fact, there's not a whole lot of guys who are above 5 fantasy points per game, which is still 2 points shy of what Quinn Hughes is doing, thanks to all those shots on goal that Quinn Hughes is putting up. The Vancouver power play, unlike the Dallas power play, is crushing it so far. And Hughes has picked up 6 power play points in 11 games. But hey, that's kind of like that's a couple more than I would have expected, but still kind of par for the course. Like Hughes has surpassed 30 power play points for 2 consecutive seasons now. So I think we can count on most of those points still coming. Where Hughes has really elevated his game is at 5-on-5, where he has basically doubled his shot attempt rates and his shot rates, and he's tripled his shooting percentage. But that's a little like, oh yeah, it's not all going to keep up, but still, he's doing what he said he would do at the start of last year and at the start of this year, which is shooting more. And that's translating to, that's one of the reasons that Hughes already has 4 goals this year, and probably contributes to a few of the assists that he's picked up along the way too. So yeah, if Quinn Hughes keeps this up and is on a power play that keeps clicking the way it is in Vancouver, Elon, I like your take that Quinn Hughes could go wire to wire as the top fantasy defenseman in the league.
Yeah, I think definitely the front runner for the Norris at this point, especially with the way they vote on that award. Okay, so Brian, we still have a few more games to go. I think it's time to take our last break. We'll come back and we'll, you know what, Brian? I used to do headlines to start, and I sometimes do. I probably waited a long time before talking about the Jack Hughes injury, which is pretty significant.
Kind of,
but
kind of relevant.
What are you gonna do? Whatever, get Dawson. We'll talk about that when we come back to finish off the show. We'll be back in a sec. Okay, Brian, it's the third period of this back-to-back 2-part episode. I don't know, third period of this doubleheader, and we're here. And we got to talk about the. I'll just start it over. Brian, we are back. It's the third period of part 2 over here. Yeah, let's go to the New Jersey Devils, who didn't play on Saturday, but they did play today, and it's a final now. They've defeated Chicago 4-2, and this is without both Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier. Jack Hughes, it was announced as week to week, a huge blow to New Jersey, of course, to fantasy managers who were like, what I just said about Quinn Hughes being the top fantasy D. Jack Hughes has been in discussion. Maybe he's like the top fantasy forward now. So the Hughes brothers just having a great 2023-24 season so far. Unfortunately, it's going to have to take a little break for Hughes. Yeah, Heischer also hurt. So New Jersey, all of a sudden, like the good thing for them, they have a bit of depth. But yeah, great news, I guess, for Dawson Mercer, who took over on the line with Timo Meyer, which I guess you can call line one. And he was also on the top power play. Wait, was he? Oh, no, he wasn't. No. Mercer. Oh, yeah. Mercer also got a chunk of power play time. It looks like New Jersey was maybe rolling 2 power play units. I would think the one with Meyer and Bratt and Toffoli is power play one. So maybe Mercer's not on the top power play. But anyways, in the short term, Mercer had like such a slow start to the season. But now that he got this increased deployment, he finally got off the schneid, scored a goal, took 4 shots today against Chicago. Is now the time, Brian, to jump on Dawson Mercer for as long as Hughes and I guess even also Heischer is out? Like, I think you got to call him the top line center, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's been great to see Mercer put up 8 shots in his last 2 games, 4 shots in each of them, which equals Mercer's output in the previous 9 games combined. So if Mercer's like finally going to be able to be on the ice and shoot, and like he's also had a couple more minutes than he was getting at the start of the season, that's a positive. So yeah, and whenever Mercer gets going, he gets going. Like he's known to be streaky and get on some good runs. So yeah, I'd be happy to grab him. Elon, one other guy I'm going to shout out based on today's lines, playing with Tyler Toffoli and Jesper Bratt, is Michael McLeod, who is Elon. You love your former first round picks. Back in 2016, Michael McLeod was taken 12th overall by the Devils. He's 25 years old now. And he has 2 goals in his last 3 games and playing, as I mentioned, I'll say it again, maybe between Toffoli and Jesper Bratt. And also, McLeod has 11 shots in his last 3 games, including 5 shots, again, against Chicago, 3 shots against St. Louis. So, like, not necessarily the most defensively sturdy teams, but still doing it. Absolutely no power play time to speak of. Some short-handed role, which is why maybe he picks up a block here and there. But if you want a real deep cut, I might as well mention Michael McLeod for
No,
this
for
upcoming
sure.
week. Yeah.
And look, like you might take a look and just be like, oh, New Jersey plays 2 times, no point. But those 2 games are on Tuesday, Friday. Like a lot of teams only play 2 times by Friday. So you could pick up a Mercer or a McLeod, get their 2 games, and then drop them for someone else for the weekend, and you'll have like a standard week of production. So definitely I would not like ignore these potential Devil streamers, and hopefully the big stars, Hughes and Heischer will be back soon, so New Jersey can like show us exactly what they can do. While we're here, Brian, we got to talk about, let's see how he did today. But Dougie Hamilton, okay, he had an assist today. That's good. But overall, like, yeah, the season is just not going the way people expected for a guy who was drafted like so high. Definitely ahead of Quinn Hughes. So you can say that about quite a few defensemen. But yeah, Hamilton was cold for a bit, only 1 point in 5 games. I guess with his assists now, it doesn't look as bad. And he's actually now up to 8 points in 11 games. So again, a lot of those points came in the first 5 games. The second stretch hasn't been great for Hamilton. He has been taking a lot of shots. I would love to get like just an updated estimate point total. Like I asked you for Burns or something. I don't think this is like, it's not as dire as with Brent Burns here, but this is a guy who had 74 points last year. Now that it seems like we're pretty locked on Hamilton not being on the top power play, at least for a while, how low do we go? Like 60 points, 65?
Yeah, like we're going low, and I think we've had this conversation already, right? That Hamilton and we talked like at the start of the season when the conversation was, and we've rehashed this a bunch of times, that like, oh yeah, if Luke Hughes, if he happens to take over the top power play, which he has, then you can expect Dougie Hamilton to be somewhere in like the 55, 60 point range instead of the point per game range, and it looks like that's where we're headed. I'm relieved to see Hamilton still like firing away at 5-on-5. Like he has 4 more shots in 4 consecutive games. So at least Hamilton's still helping you there and not just leaving you high and dry because of his reduced power play role. But it's not exactly what you were bargaining for. But it's not going to be, to me, it's not as bad or critical a situation as when Hedman was knocked off the top unit. Like I think Hamilton can still do more than Hedman was doing when he was off, when he lost time to Sergachev. So that's the silver lining for Hamilton managers. You're still going to get a bunch, just not as much as you hoped, and probably not as much as the draft capital you invested should have returned for as long as
Yeah.
he's not on the top unit, which I think is going to stay the case.
Okay, Brian. Next up, I guess we got to get to it. Penguins destroyed the Sharks 10-2. San Jose is so bad. San Jose now has let in like 20 goals in their last couple games. I don't even know exactly, but
Yeah,
they
20
are
goals in 2 games.
it's like, are they going to win a game this year? Maybe not. Like we knew it was going to be bad going into this season, but we've seen other teams look like they were going to be really bad, and they still like sometimes win and sometimes look somewhat competitive. But it's really this like it's looking really bad. Like, and Pittsburgh wasn't even having such a great season. Like they're not even that great this year, and still a nice opportunity, I guess, for the Penguins to go in and help some of their players maybe gain some confidence to play against San Jose. Are we at a point now where when we're looking at schedules and trying to see which players to stream, like maybe you got to look and see who's playing San Jose because there's like a big opportunity for points there. I think that's the big takeaway here. And like my other
Yeah.
question is like,
Okay.
oh, I'll say. And my other question, I guess, looking at San Jose is like at one point we were saying, oh, well, at least Tomas Hertl's doing well. Like at the start of the season, he had like 5 points in 5 games, and he went super cold. He had a couple assists in these 2 goals that the Sharks were able to put up against Tristan Jarry and the Penguins. Is Hertl like a drop net? Like, is it just like no one on San Jose is worth holding, or do you still have like some faith in Hertl being able to be like not even like so amazing, but like worth like rostering in the cupful?
Yeah, I will say like Hurdle's been dropped a lot in the cupful, and I don't disagree that that could have been a move worth making, and it still might be. Like anyone who dropped Hurdle could be at peace with that. Like the Sharks suck, and they'd suck even more without Hurdle. But Hurdle's 5-on-5 numbers are actually consistent with last year. Somehow he's still doing okay personally. The San Jose power play is struggling. They're just converting on 8% of their shots. But at 5-on-5, it's almost comical. Like, remember at the start of the show, like 9 hours ago, I mentioned how the Oilers had a 6.5% shooting percentage. Like that's way too low. That's got to turn. The Sharks are shooting 2.73%. Like this is ungodly. Like the next worst shooting percentage is Washington, just above 5%, and Calgary's at 6%. 2 point. This is unheard of. The Sharks are not like they're bad. I don't know if they're as bad as they look. And anytime that you can't keep the puck out of your net, of course, like that's gonna be demoralizing, right? Like that's a big bummer. But just at 5-on-5, the Sharks have scored they've been outscored 36-6 this year at 5-on-5. Even though the expected goals battle has been them being expected to be outscored 29-21, which is respectable, but different from what's actually happened. So I guess this will be a test for models. I'm not actually sure models will apply to this team. We've seen teams like have been so bad in the past, like Buffalo, that they have actually broken models. So we'll keep an eye on things and see how bad things are in San Jose, but they're bad. The only player you might want to roster is Hertl. And if you want to drop him, you have license to, you have permission to. I have a feeling he can do better than he's done so far, but not a whole lot better.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of comical, right? Like I am kind of now excited to kind of see the score every time San Jose plays.
Yeah, it is like, imagine playing for them, right? Because that is the fun of watching San Jose now. At least it's fun.
Yeah. Well, hey, their schedule next week, by the way, Philly Tuesday, Edmonton Thursday. Oh man, you were saying, Brian, that Edmonton has been having like some bad shooting luck. Like,
They could
it's
they
gonna
could
be
regress completely in that one game.
8 points for McDavid coming on Thursday. You heard it here first. And then a Vegas and Anaheim to end the week for the Sharks. Good schedule if you want to take a shot on one of them. Okay, next up, Brian, let's go to Calgary versus Seattle, where the Flames picked up the win. Sorry, one sec. I didn't open it up. The Flames picked up the win. And yet, what the hell? I can't find. Oh, yeah. You know it's a good day, Brian, when Jonathan Huberdeau got a point. He picked up a single assist in the 6 goals that Calgary scored. I guess I just have a pretty straight up question for you at this point, Brian. We're now 6 points in 11 games for Jonathan Huberdeau. Um, if you look at the shots, he's averaging 1.5 shots per game, which is really brutal. He had 1 shot in this win against Seattle. I know he just got a point. He now has 2 assists in 3 games, but this is kind of like what you were saying about Quinton Byfield, where like even when he gets a point, it's like not with anything else to help you. He's never going to hit anybody. He actually had 3 hits in a game against Dallas a couple games
He's
ago. He's all
angry. He's
zeros.
getting mad.
Okay, well, is Huberto a drop? That's my question.
Yeah,
In-
he's real close to it. Like if you can drop Hurdle, you can drop Huberdeau, right? Huberdeau's within a 5-on-5 point in 7 games and counting. His shot attempt rates are actually better than last year, but they're still on the low end of his career because last year sucked for Huberdeau. His actual shots on goal rates are awful. So whatever additional shot attempts Huberdeau is getting, they're getting blocked. Which is also Elon a Byfield trait. There's comparison number 2 between Huberdeau and Byfield. On ice numbers are bad though for Huberdeau. Like the Flames look lost as a team. And this goes like for like Elias Lindholm too, who's like supposed to be like the rock on the roster, the steady hand. Like he looks terrible when he's on the ice too. Like the Flames, they look bad. They're not scoring on a normal amount of their shots. Like the on-ice shooting percentage for Huberdeau is 6.5%. That's low, but it's not awful. Like it's not the reason Huberdeau sucks. I think Huberdeau is bad because he's still a little lost in the woods, and I don't know if or when he's going to find his way on the power play. Especially Huberdeau is shooting a good deal less often and a lot less effectively. The Calgary power play as a whole has actually looked like threatening, but they're only scoring on 8% of their shots. So that'll turn, but I'm not sure that's going to help Huberdeau because the big shooters on the power play right now in Calgary, they're really running it through their defense. Like all Rasmus Anderson's the top shooter and the top scoring threat, it seems, based on expected goals numbers. Kadri is the most dangerous of the forwards, but it's all coming from the blue line. And I'm not sure how that really helps Huberdeau in the long run. So Elon, yeah, permission to drop Jonathan Huberdeau. Absolutely. Good for anyone who tried to take that chance. But part of taking the chance was knowing that you might have to cut bait. And I would say now's a pretty reasonable time to do it. I wouldn't want to wait any longer, honestly.
yeah, it might be a Barrett Hayton situation. You drop him and then he'll like turn it around. But like they just scored 6 goals and like he got a single assist. It's getting to a situation where it's just like, yeah, like you could wait, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to be worth that much. And even when he does get a point, there's no peripherals to go along with it. So depending on your league settings, he hurts even more. On the Seattle side, a lot of random hot streaks. That's the Seattle way. The name I'll throw out to you, Brian, is Jaden Schwartz. Has been like so good lately. He's another former Brian favorite, I recall, from back when he was on St. Louis. He used to be really high
Yeah.
on him. He's doing really well. He has 8 points his last 6 games. Like, is there a reason not to grab Jaden Schwartz? He's on a point streak. Like every single game, he gets a goal or an assist, or he has even a couple games with multi-point games. He's looking great. It's he's got a lot of ice time, 21 minutes and 42 seconds in this loss to Calgary, and he scored a goal. So yeah, I think like it's pretty reasonable to say to go grab Jaden Schwartz if he's out there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He's taken almost 3 shots per game, which is an uptick. Like right now, it's some of the highest shot rates that Schwartz is putting up of his whole career, and that's one of the reasons that he's been able to score 5 goals, because the shot volume is there for him. In terms of assists, like he's picking up a few too many. 100% points participant at 5-on-5. But really, I mean, this is as hot as a Kraken player gets, and it's not to say it's not going to peter out sometime in the next week or two. But while these guys are like, this is the Kraken way, right? Like when they're hot, you add them, and when they're not, you drop them, and that's just how it goes.
All right, and final game from yesterday, it was the Vegas Golden Knights destroying the Colorado Avalanche 7-0. Colorado's been shut out like 3 times in the past couple weeks. What's going on with Colorado? Like, are they just not that good anymore? Like, because all of a sudden, all these players that we were kind of interested in, Ryan Johansson was exciting to start the year on the power play. He's like super cold. Nichushkin isn't even on the power play. Like they're playing around with their lines. Like in this loss, they were rolling McKinnon, Rantanen, and Lehkonen for most of the game. obviously it wasn't working. So I think things will shift around. So we'll have to wait and see. Nichushkin was playing with like Ryan Johansson and Jonathan Drouin, which is really bad for Nichushkin, who's like a 70-point guy last year. So I don't even know exactly what my question is. I guess just I don't know. I don't even we need to ask a question. We could
What's
just say like Colorado's going to probably have to change things up and figure something out, right? We haven't seen
no,
this adversity
no,
there.
no, that's the mistake. That would be a
Oh,
mistake. There, it's actually Colorado makes a nice bookend to the show with Edmonton because Colorado is posting the same PDO. They are fifth in the league in creating chances and 28th in the league in shooting percentage at 5-on-5. And those two things don't match. Those numbers should be closer together. Also, you know what, Elon? There is one thing they might want to change, and it's this. I mentioned LA was second in the league in shot suppression, in chance suppression. Guess who's first? It's the Avalanche. They're doing amazing. Top 5 offense, best defense at 5-on-5. And you see them struggling. They're 26th in save percentage. So their luck should turn. One thing to mention is Georgiev, he's been terrible. Like on one hand, he's lucky Francouz isn't healthy to push him. I'm not sure that Francouz could have. But honestly, Elon, like I wonder, like Ivan Prosvetov had a good start, and I wonder if we should just keep an eye on him, like to see if he's any good, because I don't think we know yet if he's good or not. Like he hasn't made it so far in his NHL career, so we can read into that what we want. But Prosvetov, like he stopped 27 of 28 shots for the win against St. Louis in the middle of last week. And I don't know if Georgiev keeps struggling. I don't know why the Avs wouldn't want to try and turn to Prosvetov and see if he can stabilize things in net, or at least long enough for Georgiev to find his game. Because I mean, there's some bad shooting luck in Colorado for sure, but paired with how bad Georgiev has been playing, I think that's, if one of those things could work, they'd be in better shape. But right now, neither one is, and they can change one of those personnel easier than the other.
I guess. Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, they also have to score goals though. Like in those 3 games where they got shut out, it wouldn't have mattered how well Georgiev played. So yeah, I guess it's fun. So you're saying that they just had some bad shooting luck. So it'll be fun to see if Colorado could turn things around. They have a lot of, dangerous weapons, but we'll have to see. Maybe like the Drouins and the Ryan Johanssons and whatever these like new replacements they've brought in might not be it might be a Toronto situation, right? Like those guys just aren't working out. I was talking about with Lewis, how like they brought in Bertuzzi and Domi and whoever, none of them are really seeming to work out. We'll have to wait and see. Brian, this has been a blast. We've gone
Wait,
through. Oh, wait.
sorry.
Oh,
Did we talk about Anaheim?
no, we didn't. So let's talk about Anaheim. What do you want to say about Anaheim?
Well, just quickly, because I know we had a specific request for Minchikov, right?
Oh, yeah. Another point today.
Yeah, he's doing great. I'm not sure if I got my numbers. No, I must have gotten them before the game rather than after. But before the game, Minchikov had 7 points in 10 games, including 1 on the power play. And Minchikov's peripherals have been nice. 1 or 2 shots, 1 or 2 blocks, 2 or 3 hits per night. His 5-on-5 numbers look a little high, 67% points participation rate. But on the flip side, the power play scoring for Minchikov hasn't yet come. Elon, was Minchikov's point tonight on the power play?
It was not.
Okay. Was he still on the power play?
Okay. Well, it looks like he was on a power play, but also Cam Fowler was on a power play. Cam Fowler actually assisted on an Adam Henrique power play goal, which has got to be power play too. So I'll say yes.
Okay.
Minchikov was on the top power play.
Okay. Yeah. So either that power play scoring, hasn't yet come from Minchikov and it will, or it never will, or he'll get cycled off the unit. So like there's still a lot to figure out about exactly what the long-term outlook for Minchikov is. But if you've got him, I mean, it's worth like holding on just to find out what happens here.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then Trevor Zegras, did he do anything today or still nothing?
Still nothing for Trevor Zegras.
Yeah, and it's funny because he still looks the same under the hood as last year at 5-on-5, but he hasn't scored yet. 0% shooting. The Ducks are shooting 3% with him on the ice, and actually, the Ducks on the ice with Zegras look better than they did last year. So I will still bang that Trevor Zegras buy low drum.
Okay, so with that, Brian, we've made it to the end of the show. What a blast! I don't. Okay, next episode is going to be. Yeah, this is definitely a very long shift. This is me. But okay, pal, let's take us out of here to end part 2. Let's cue the outro music. Read us the credits. Let's go to bed.
Elon has like 3 full sentences left in him, if that. It's also daylight savings. I think that's impacted me personally. I don't know if you. Okay. This episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dauber Hockey and powered by our patrons, including our super supporters, Patty, who's in the chat too. Thanks, Patty. Ricard, Rob, David, Ryan, Tom, Zach, Andrea, also in the chat. Sammy, Ivan, Philip, Aaron, Patrick, Michael, Dom, and Roman, who I think I also saw. The chat's a fun place to be. Patrons are always welcome. The link's in the Discord server. Thank you to Kevin Hebert, our couple coordinator and Lord of the Bots. Thank you, Shams and Elon, for all you do, keeping all the tweets coming at gamedaytweets.com so we do not have to go on Twitter ourselves and can still stay up to date. Thanks to the Short Shifts crew. You can follow them on Twitter at ShortShiftsKK. Logo art by BrandonWeave.com. Outro music by Pat Roach. This episode was researched with help from Dauber Hockey, Frozen Tools, Dauber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey, Cap Friendly, The Athletic, HockeyGoalies.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, and Yahoo.
Great job as always, Brian. Looking forward to another big slate of shows this coming week. We got a couple short shifts. I'll do a matchup maximizer. We just repeat with all the new information that keeps coming out to try to help everyone be successful in fantasy. What do? While we sit in anticipation for all of this Keeping Karlsson content?
Yeah, while you're anticipating, while you're enjoying, while you're engaging, however you engage, just make sure you're doing what you can to make sure that fantasy hockey is for everyone.
Great stuff. Thanks, everyone, so much. Really appreciate you being here, especially for such a long shift. Pal,
it's like a
pleasure as always.
Okay, you're done. Yeah, we're cooked.
See ya.